Welcome into the PHLY Phillies Trade Deadline Show presented by Indeed. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. That's Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire. You need Indeed. We're also brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Welcome into the PHLY Trade Deadline Special here. If you realize we are not in our studios or our home studios, we are live from Billy Murphy's Saloon in East Falls, an absolute institution bar of Philadelphia. An honor to be here, courtesy of our friends over at Miller Lite, Renee. So we officially have the countdown clock on the screen. We are less than 1 hour until the MLB trade deadline, and a little bit of a fury of moves just happened, as the big one is Tanner Scott just went out west to the San Diego Padres. Do the Phillies have anything up their sleeve? We will find out here in the next 59 minutes. I am right now taking my temperature. I don't think anything big is going to happen, although Jim Salisbury and others very connected said that they're always checking that Garrett Crochet market, and they're keeping an eye on that. The Atlanta Braves were a team that are keeping their eye on that, among with the Orioles and some others. So it certainly can happen, and we'll find out in the next hour if it's going to happen. But happy trade deadline day.
Yeah, here we are, guys, July 30th, already time to start looking ahead. It's wild because I've been watching every other breaking tweet and update that's come through, just waiting with bated breath for the Phillies to do something, and especially after making the moves to be able to bring in Austin Hayes and Carlos Estevez. I felt like they were still going to do one more small move. I know there's 58 minutes as of this moment. There still is some time to cross the T's, dot the I's, make that deal happen. But it is making me less optimistic, especially when we're seeing the names that we had wanted for the Phillies slowly coming off of the board. Yeah, and the Carlos Estevez trade on Saturday certainly kind of pales in comparison to some of these deals going on right now. The San Diego Padres are in complete F these prospects, go push in. They have now traded 12 of their top 15 prospects from a rich farm system that was graded out really well in just January and February as a top 5 in baseball. So they are burning their prospects down and going for it. And one of the reasons John Heyman just said that they are going for it is that the Dodgers, and this is good news for the Phillies, the Dodgers were a team very in on Tanner Scott at the last minute, causing the Padres to pony up and pay more, which is why they did it. Tyler, you had the numbers. It was 3, 6, 9, and 29th prospects, I believe.
Actually, I think it was even more than that. Just going based on what we were looking at earlier in the day. Let me try to go back and try to find this really quickly.
But it's something similar around that.
So 2. Robbie Snelling was 2. Adam Mazur was 4. Graham Pauley was 5. And I think the last one was Jay Bashir's, and he was 24.
Wow.
So 2, 4, 5, and 24.
So, Renee, Dave Dombrowski, Sam Fold, and staff looking pretty smart here, jumping on that trade 2 days early.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the fact that you have 3 of the top 5 prospects in that trade with the Padres and Marlins, you know, teams aren't afraid to push all in. There's been a few teams that actually been jumping out at me that I've been watching, the Yankees, the Padres, that are very active on the trade market. And on the other side, you are seeing teams like the Marlins, the Rays that are actively selling. But it's crazy because you want to be able to make trades happen without having to give everything, especially for a team like the Phillies. I know in the chat everybody's talking through. And what's up, guys, in the chat? Nice to have you here. I know you're talking through what you hoped and wanted for the Phillies. And one of those names, Tanner Scott, is not coming to the Phillies.
But he's not going to the Dodgers.
He's not going to the Dodgers, which is important. And then also, I think the biggest thing is a lot of teams are giving up so much in these trades, and the Phillies were able, when you really look back on those 2 trades, Carlos Estevez and for Austin Hayes, they didn't give up much. Now, is that a good thing? We'll see. But they were very disciplined in what they gave up.
The Hayes thing is interesting because you're not seeing a lot of major league for major league player trades.
No, it's a lot of prospects.
It's a lot of heavy prospects, which it usually is. But it does put the Hayes trade in a little better perspective of you didn't have to go down into your farm system and decimate anything there. So
Yeah.
that's even – look, do I think Austin Hayes is having people jump down his throat for a very small sample size so far? Yes, I do, and it makes me giggle as a Philadelphian because we are a vile bunch sometimes. Give the guy a chance. I understand it's not he's not setting the world on fire. But when you think about what you gave up, Christian Pache was pretty much absolutely nothing. And Sir Anthony Dominguez kind of is what he is at this point. I think everybody felt okay-ish moving on from him.
Yeah.
So Bob Nightingale just tweeted out, with less than 1 hour to the trade deadline, it is still TBD if Garrett Crochet of the Chicago White Sox and Jarek Flaherty are going to be moved. The Dodgers continue to be engaged with both of them. And that's the team I'm keeping my eye on here, Renee, in these final 55 minutes or so. The Los Angeles Dodgers. These are the big boys. This is who you're up against. They're not afraid to spend. They're not afraid to trade. So we'll see what happens. We have our notifications combined set on pretty much everyone around baseball.
And that is it. Now it's at a point is if the Phillies are not going to do anything in the next 50 minutes, let's make sure that we aren't seeing moves from teams that we have to be mindful of, the Dodgers being one of them. You saw the Mets make a trade as well, sending Cade Morris to Oakland and the Paul Blackburn trade. Watching teams in the NL especially making moves, see what they're doing, seeing how they're adding, and then also just keeping in mind what's happening. Luis Robert, another one, Garrett Crochet, some of these big names that have been talked about. Seems like teams are also possibly not going to be able to make a move happen and lock in on a deal that works for both sides. So, guys in the chat, I'm not sure that we're going to see anything for the Phillies. It's not.
How do you feel?
Possible.
You're not feeling good about it?
I mean, it's not. It is possible. It's not likely, in my opinion. I'm usually pretty optimistic. I like to give as much as possible the benefit of the doubt for the Phillies. If something is to happen, though, Jamie and Tyler, I do feel like what we're going to get is just a very small move. Whatever happens at this point.
It does feel like that, yeah.
I mean, Tanner Scott and different names are off the board. So I don't think there's anybody out there that they're going to be pushing all in for. But flip side, maybe the reason why it's taking so long is there is a big move in the works, and it's been taking every minute of the down to the wire of the trade deadline for them to finalize this deal. But I honestly, in all reality, think it would be small.
I have one person of knowledge of the inner workings, and I texted them earlier, and I'm getting absolutely nothing. I'm getting.
I thought you were gonna share some inside scoop.
What makes you think maybe they're just incredibly active and they don't care about people in the outside world right now? They're hunkered down in Dombrowski's war room, and they're making all the calls. I would imagine they're very much checking out the Garrett Crochet market. Especially with Rangers' health. And what it is, a guy that can go to the bullpen for you, that's not going to cost you a lot of money now. Yeah. Whether or not he wants that extension and demands it, we'll see what happens there. But they're definitely making calls. They're definitely active here. And if the market does look expensive right now, the Tanner Scott market just kind of, and we'll keep you up to date on everything happening. And there's been a lot of activity over the last hour. This is not a cheap trade deadline.
No, it's not. Well, there are a lot of teams that are on opposite sides of the spectrum. The teams that are maybe in a rebuild mode right now, and so they're looking to bring in prospects, start over, get young. The White Sox being some of those teams. Then there's teams that are in that win now mode, similar to the Phillies, that are looking to just fine-tune some things around the edges. And so on both sides, teams are going all in. And to see, right now, I know you guys are talking about somebody like Rooker, who we talked extensively about, and the different names. Someone like Brent Rooker, who, as we talked about, offensively makes sense for the Phillies, but doesn't defensively if he's unable to play in the outfield at all and is going to be a DH. But I think for the Phillies, this is what we expected from them. Like, nothing is surprising. It's always exciting around the trade deadline, but when have we notoriously really seen them make moves ahead of the trade deadline? Right now, it's about keeping the core and adding around the edges. That's what the Phillies did in the offseason. That's what the Phillies are doing right now with the trade deadline. And so, it does seem like it's been an expensive market, which also takes the Phillies out of that market. Let's be honest. They're not gonna be as active if there's so many. You look at a team giving up 3 of their top 5 prospects. The Phillies were not going to do that.
No, not at all. It seems. Through the grapevine and reading the tea leaves that Justin Crawford is very close to an untouchable status with the Phillies. They won't come out and say, but Aiden Miller and Andrew Painter clearly are.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons the Phillies originally moved on from Tanner Scott because the Marlins wanted one of those upper echelon guys. And the reality is the Phillies farm system is, smack dab in the middle of Major League Baseball, which is saying a lot because a couple years ago it was terrible. It was like 27th, 28th.
Yeah.
So they've taken some great strides recently. So I myself get, am guilty of this from time to time too. Like the Randy Arozarena trade, you see the Mariners give up their 8, 12, and 17 prospect or whatever, and you're like, well, why don't you just jump in and do the same thing?
Right?
Well, their 8, 12 might grade out higher than, so it's not a prospect for prospect fair trade situation, but it certainly looks like an expensive market out here. I'm shocked that the Padres gave up 12 of their top 15 prospects to go for it. Tatis is hurt.
Yeah.
They've got a nasty bullpen now. Probably one that will perhaps be better than the Phillies, at least on paper. We'll see how they perform. And John Heyman just tweeted that the Red Sox are, in fact, after a lefty reliever, but they are not giving up one of their top prospects. He is untouchable. So we'll see what happens here as we have 49 minutes to go.
Yeah, it is interesting because to see a team like the Padres, and as you talk about the amount of prospects that they've given up and trading for Dylan Cease, Luis Ariz, and now Scott Honig, they've been so active, and it's bizarre, but it says a lot of about what they believe in the clubhouse, that this is a team that they feel like they've still got the pieces and are able to give up a lot of prospects for that, to have 12 of your 15 top prospects traded dating back to when you were able to bring in Dylan Cease. So definitely a very interesting kind of like the mindset of teams that actually, to me, feel like they're much more in it than maybe it seems, which is a little bit there's a lot of baseball left, and we know this as fast as we've been watching the Phillies swing and the momentum swing, and you go from winning streaks to struggling. The same can happen the other way. So this also shows me which teams believe they're not fully out of it and are making that real big push towards the end of the season.
The Padres kind of surprised me as a team that's going the hardest here. John Heyman also just tweeted that the Yankees, by the way, if you're paying attention to the Phillies game tonight, which we all will be, Garrett Cole actually got scratched from tonight's game to general body fatigue. We will see if the Yankees are interested in Blake Snell because they've been tied to him. The Giants just trying to get out of that final year and a half on that deal left. I would imagine the Yankees, with the uncertainty of Cole, are probably going to be very in on either Crochet or Snell or whoever it might be arms-wise that's left because they need some help. There's
a lot of conversation as we're talking about help. Looking at the Phillies specifically.
Another one just happened. Brian De La Cruz goes to the Pirates.
Wow.
It's happening quick.
There's a lot of conversation in the chat around Austin Hayes. I know people are mentioning biblically that he doesn't move the needle. I'm seeing that he sucks. JT's saying how he sucks.
9 at-bats. This guy sucks. His family's
you guys
a bum.
are not happy with Austin Hayes and the acquisition. And I do feel like for Hayes, he's a guy that has just had such an injured season that you can't really look at 2024's numbers with the full story. And that's the biggest thing that I've heard from everybody around Baltimore is that we actually got a steal. It doesn't feel like it right now, but to be honest, he also came in when the Phillies are struggling. And so I think for him, he's going to be someone that should help. They are giving him some reps as an everyday left fielder and seeing if he can prove himself as one. And he's someone that if they can keep him healthy and he can give you a little bit more of what you saw in 2023, which his numbers were tremendous, he might not stink as much. You guys might be a little bit more excited and happy with the production by Austin Hayes, but it will take some time, I feel like, for him to really settle in.
I feel like an adjustment period is fair before we start crucifying the guy after a weekend series.
All these guys getting traded, some of them getting traded mid-game and having to go travel and move in the middle of a game.
Yeah.
Pirates just also made a move themselves.
Yeah, Brian De La Cruz. The Marlins send him up.
So they just finalized that. Their Jun Suk Shim is part of the return to Miami as well. But yeah, I mean, I think
the
for everybody,
notifications are going nuts.
Everybody getting traded this week, especially the guys that were in the dugout or in the middle of the game and got told, "See ya." hey, Jamie, I know you're on the show right now, but go ahead. We just traded you to
just got traded to CHGO. Get the hell out of here.
Bye. Like, it takes some time to settle into a groove.
Like, well, my wife and kids in my house. What do I do?
Forget them. Just get up and go. Take your Miller Lite and
you
go.
You leave your family behind and you just straight up bounce. It's quite strange.
That's the business that we are in. It's bizarre, but it's the reality. So give somebody like Austin Hayes, again, he is someone that's...
Give him a little bit of a chance. I understand the non-excitement of it. I do. But let's give him a chance. I think he's better.
His numbers are actually good for this season. I'm going to go pull them up really quickly.
All right,
because
while you do that, Renee, we'll get John Foley in with us.
Let's welcome him in.
In the meantime, let me tell you about something that's never ordinary. What's that, you might ask? Well, it's our friends over at Bet365. Because whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Bet365 has 90 million users worldwide. Bet365 does live streams. They cover over 780,000 events each year. And they are one of the quickest payouts in all of sports betting. They have early payout offers across NBA, NFL, NHL, and MLB. They pioneered live in-game betting, and today, Bet365 offers the widest range of games and markets available for in-game betting across 78 sports. At Bet365, they don't do ordinary. They believe every sport should be epic. So right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. I did that, and I'm taking my $150 and making a bunch of NFL futures. Use the code PHLY365 to sign up, deposit $10, and claim your offer. Download the Bet365 app, use code PHL365 when you sign up, and check out our boosts and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER, and all the best to you.
Yeah, and all the best to you also as you are having a snack attack. Have you had a snack attack and don't know what you want to eat? Well, with Rite Aid, they have the Elo Market, an exclusive line just at Rite Aid with products that can help with any snack attack. If you're looking for candy, maybe you want some peach rings, some Starlight Mints, some butterfly, some gummy butterflies, some sour worms. They've got plenty of candy for you. They also have different types of popcorn, from the buttery to the sweet and salty to cheddar, which I'm not a big cheddar popcorn person, but I know you guys are. Some sea salt popcorn, as well as beef jerky, packed with plenty of protein, granola, which is full of whole grains, as well as some of those staples you need in your pantry, honey, seasonings. With Rite Aid, they have a lot in their Elo Market line that just gives you a chance to snack healthy, delicious candy, popcorns, and other treats. And also make sure that when you are having that snack attack, you need to get it fast. So you can go in person and pick it up in store, or you can also get that same-day delivery. That's right. Elo Market can get delivered same day. You can buy online. You can pick up in store, and check all that out when you go to riteaid.com/shop to order today for Rite Aid's new Elo Market snack line of candies, snacks, and much more.
Yes, and we are going to welcome in our pal, John Foley, who covers the team. John, you got, I believe, stuck in a little bit of Philadelphia's famous 76 traffic.
Yeah, a little bit of traffic. But, only 10 minutes late, that's not too bad for me, to be honest.
So, John, we were just talking about how now in hindsight, we're seeing some of these prospects going. I mean, Tanner Scott, the Padres have had a rich system. They've now burned that to the ground, trading 12 of their top 15 prospects over the course of the last 6 months. They just went all in for Tanner Scott and paid a hefty price to do so. Now, all of a sudden, the Carlos Estevez trade really doesn't look that bad by comparison to the market right now.
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, when we saw the Estevez trades, most people thought it was a slight overpay, but now you start to see where the market really was. And you start to think, okay, well, now I understand why they gave up who they did, why they didn't land Tanner Scott, or maybe some other relievers that folks would have preferred. So, the move starts to look better and better.
Yeah, it's
Definitely.
a real arms race out there. We'll keep a name on. All right, 40 minutes. Renee, John, does Crochet and Flaherty get moved? I would say Flaherty is close to a lock. Does Crochet get moved in the next 40 minutes?
I think Crochet would have gotten moved if he didn't have all those extra demands and asks that
was
he came out
certainly a
with.
wrench
Yeah, I
in
think
the
that
tires.
wrench. Well, also it just makes you wonder as a team, what kind of player are you getting? Talent-wise, what you're getting, but a guy that's who do you play for right now? And you're coming in saying you want to have all these postseason demands and contracts and all these stipulations about being a starter versus being a reliever. Because remember, when we were on our post-game show earlier, I guess it was last week, we were talking through as the news broke about Garrett, and I mentioned I actually like him if he's a guy that can swing between the bullpen and being a starting pitcher.
Which he can do.
Which he can do, because that would actually make him a good fit for the Phillies, especially given, Ranger Suarez just got placed on the IL. You still are waiting for Taijuan Walker as well as Spencer Turnbull to return back. Tyler Phillips has been great, but you can see where starting pitching has been a concern. So to have someone like Garrett Crochet who can swing and be a starting pitcher if needed was fantastic, but then also to know you can move him to the bullpen. And I'd rather have Ranger when healthy than Garrett Crochet as my third pitcher, to be honest, because I just know Ranger more, and I trust Ranger more. And knowing that Garrett Crochet's mentioning he only wants to be a starting pitcher has me out on him for the Phillies.
Limit scares me for that price tag.
Correct. And the price tag is high, extremely high for him.
Long term.
But if he came in saying he'd be open to whatever the team needs, I will help.
Estevez had a great quote about that.
The sand and the beach.
Yeah.
Sand on the beach.
Be sand on the beach.
Yeah.
Correct.
What a
Come
poet.
in. You need to come into a team with this expectation of I'm here to help. I want to help you win. If he had came in with more of that mindset, I think he's traded already.
Yeah.
But I'm sure plenty of teams saw the exact same things we saw. Of like, is this a clubhouse problem?
That
type
or
of a guy,
the White Sox are just a dysfunctional, inept organization
you
that is
play
the
for the
absolute
White
worst.
Sox, and
Think
you're
of our
making
friend
these
Herb.
demands.
Poor Herb. Free Herb out there.
Yeah, but it's like
Poor guy.
It's like KYP. Like you're playing
But
for
like-
the White Sox and you're coming in with all these demands. You should be happy. And I'm not saying be complacent. Of
Right.
course, you can want your value, but you should be thrilled to get out of Chicago,
You
go somewhere
would
else,
think.
and be like, take me, anybody,
you
take
would
me,
think.
please.
I do appreciate the honesty. At least he's upfront about it. You don't
He's
want to
upfront.
trade
I
for the
always want the
guy.
players to get paid. I'm very
Yeah, I do want to get
pro-player.
paid, and I think he would have if
But,
he
like-
hadn't said so much about his stipulations.
You said too much.
He said a little
It's a
too
little
much.
too much. His agent probably wasn't
So,
happy
John,
about
does
that.
he get moved?
I think he gets moved. I don't think
You think
it'll be
Dave's
to,
on the phone with the White Sox?
I don't think it's going to be to the Phillies. I mean, their need this year, it would be a great long-term move, but their need
It
this
would
year,
be a great long-term move.
if they were to get somebody like that, a sort of swingman, the way they used Lorenzen last year, I think if they got somebody like that, it would be because they want that person to eat innings, and that seems like exactly what Crochet can't do right now.
Yeah. Tyler, what do you think? Does Crochet get moved? He's the biggest name on the market. I think he's bigger than Flaherty, obviously, because of the control.
Yeah.
It appears Luis Robert Jr. at this point might not get moved because the
Yeah.
White Sox don't know what they're doing.
Are you okay? By the way, we'll have to. Well, we can circle back.
Yeah,
I'll give you a moment.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got plenty of Miller Lite for you, so
That's true.
You can do what you need
And
to
they
do.
taste extra good at Billy Murphy's Saloon.
So, does Crochet get moved? I don't.
It kind of.
I'm starting to feel like the answer is no.
What are the White Sox doing?
So here's the thing: the White Sox are not. They're not forced to move Garrett Crochet.
No, they can wait
They
till
have,
the offseason.
They have plenty of time, I believe. What's his arbitration time up to? I
believe he's got two more years.
years of
Yeah.
arbitration. They're not in a rush, but I will say this: moving a guy now versus moving a guy
Seems like a high pay, deadline price.
Right. So that's what I'm saying is you have the extra 4 months of arbitration control this year, obviously, plus the playoff aspirations for whatever
Yes,
team's
2
going to
more
acquire
years
him.
of arbitration.
Every year that you pass arbitration, he's going to make more money, which
Sure.
is not mean he's making like $800,000 this year. He's probably going to he probably gets 2 next year, 2.5. But every year that you pass up on arbitration is a year that your stock goes down for the team that you play for. So am I a little bit surprised that they're not going to move him? I am, but at this point, I don't think he gets moved.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
White Sox are just an inept organization. Even their trade earlier with Kopech and all the rest, they ended up getting a part of a 3-team trade instead of just like trade. They traded 3 pieces and combined it in a 3-team trade instead of just attacking each team individually and trying to get more out of each said team. Like they're just a bad organization.
Yeah, and I know, as the reports had indicated earlier from John Heyman and Bob Nightingale about Garrett Crochet being more likely to be moved than Luis Robert, I don't think that's a high bar right now, especially given the numbers lately from Robert. Your boy, Jamie, and I was all in on him too. Of course, we know he's been batting a .221 with 12 home runs and 14 stolen bases. He's in a little bit of a slump lately.
That's fine.
Crochet, who's got great numbers as a 3.23 ERA, leads the AL in strikeouts with 160 in his 22 starts this season. yes, he's probably more likely to get moved than Luis Robert, but I don't know that Luis Robert's, I feel like he's in like a negative chance of getting moved at this point. So to say Crochet's further along, great, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Low bar to clear.
It's a low bar to clear.
I agree. I mean, I do think there's a chance we could see a lot of things happen in the last minute here, just because.
I hope so.
That's the nature of deadlines, right? And these teams that are holding out, you're holding out for a king's ransom for a guy.
Sure. And it looks like the Padres just got it. I mean, honestly.
Yeah. And once one of those dominoes falls,
the Marlins got it.
And once one of those dominoes falls, then the other teams sort of see, okay, this is where the market is.
Yeah.
Wow, that player we were really saying we'll absolutely not give up in this deal. I guess we're willing to move him because look at the prices.
Yeah. Well, speaking of prices, the other huge name out there with 35 minutes remaining in the deadline is Tarek Skubal from the Detroit Tigers. I was listening to the Sirius XM baseball channel. They didn't seem to think he was going to get moved. I was listening to them about an hour ago. They didn't think he was going to get moved. Orioles do seem like the team that's probably in the best position prospect-wise, on the verge of winning-wise, new ownership, all that. But they did also mention you hate to hear the Dodgers involved with every single trade candidate out there.
Yeah, exactly. As we're just still getting more of those details from the Pirates trade. The Pirates are acquiring Isaiah Kiner-Falefa from the Blue Jays.
I love falafel.
I do not love the fact that the Dodgers' name was brought up with Skubal.
It's always just
they
hanging
apparently
around.
have this
Yeah, they don't
endless
care.
amount
Money's
of money,
not ruled to
and
real
whatever
to
they're
them.
doing financially, like, please let me know so I can do it in my own personal life of just figuring out how to continue to have pits and pits of money to pull from. But I'd rather him go to neither team, of course. But if I had to choose, it'd be the Orioles.
Go to the Orioles, I guess.
Go to the Orioles. The Orioles, obviously, also right now, and this is partly why the Austin Hayes trade happened and why they brought in Sir Anthony Dominguez, is they do need bullpen arms drastically. Even starting pitchers, they've had so many injuries. Granted, so have the Dodgers, to their pitching staff that they're looking to replenish and bring in some more arms. And what better person to bring in than Tarek Skubal, who's got fantastic numbers.
He's quite good.
And they also have a lot of prospects. And right now for the Orioles, they're in that phase of, like, they've got some of the best prospects across the league. And they're getting restless because they're also on the doorstep, but the prospects aren't going to help them win right now. So the common conversation around the Orioles is the fact that they need to trade some of those prospects to bring in guys that can help them win now. And someone like Skubal would be that piece to help them solidify a lot in their arms. You bring in a Sir Anthony Dominguez,
and they just made a trade earlier today. Tyler, I'm blanking on the prospect who they liked, but they brought in Trevor Rogers from the Marlins and ended up giving up one of the prospects that the Orioles have been fairly high on. We were talking.
Oh, it was they moved Colin Norby.
Yes,
and Kyle Stowers.
Yes, so.
Norby had been fluctuating between the minors. You've got some reps in the majors.
Baltimore friends. You're always talking to
well,
Orioles.
Norby was he's on my fantasy team for a little bit.
Set the counter back to 0.
But I do have some inside connects. But I pulled him up when he got called up, and then he got sent back to the minors because he struggled and got rocked.
Yeah.
But he is someone that has had some time in the majors, and my inside connects to Baltimore. My BTMR, I guess it would be. I don't know what Baltimore would be.
There's got to be an L in there somewhere.
BLTM? Sure. My BLTM.
Bacon, lettuce,
sounds
tomato,
like a
and
sandwich.
Delicious sandwich that you can
I
get.
love a BLTM.
Yeah.
Minus the T. But they have been saying a lot about just the frustrations of the prospects. And we always talk about here, I know in the chat you guys are going crazy about how these prospects can't get moved and these untouchables. Well, the Orioles are like, get them out of here. We can't do anything with these prospects right now.
That's
Ship
the
them
case, John, to make. If you're the Phillies fan, you're as close to a World Series chance as you've probably ever had, including 07, 08, and 09. And a lot of fans out there want that same kind of feeling of, like, screw it. If it's going to cost me a 6th through 10th prospect, I know the system's rebuilt a little bit, and they're hopeful for that. But at the same time, they are currency.
Yeah, they are.
They really are. And, we've been waiting a long time for a championship. And for a large part of the season, we thought, okay, here we are. We're so close. This should really be the moment to go all in. Let's go for it. Miller, Crawford, Caba, Painter, these guys, if they hang on to them, we'll look back and we might look back a couple years from now and say, wow, can't believe we were clamoring to trade this guy for Luis Robert Jr. Entirely possible. But at the same time, with the way the Phillies have been playing lately, feeling like you kind of need a jolt of some kind to really kick them back into high gear. and such a championship drought. You know, that sense of urgency that Middleton always seems to be trying to convey about he wants his effing trophy back.
That's what's giving me a little hope here in the final half hour, to be honest with you, that something major could happen. You know, it's a small percentage I'm putting in it, but John Middleton really, I think, feels it more than anyone of I want my fucking trophy back.
You would think.
And I wonder if there's a little bit of pressure or just communication with Dave where it's like, dude, do whatever it takes.
Yeah, but you
like,
think
you wonder.
With Dave Dombrowski's history, you think he would be receptive to that. You've got a president of baseball operations who is known for making big deals. Screw the farm system. Let's win a championship now. You've got an owner that is supposedly feeling this urgency and wants his trophy back. You've got a team that's on the doorstep, struggling lately, but let's be clear, still the best record in baseball.
And I think that's why there is so much frustration. I know you guys in the chat are not happy and wanting. Well, they want John and I to crack open these Miller Lights, and we will. We've got a lot of time here.
I mean, I'll drink them if you don't.
But I do think the hard part is you hear the comments from John Middleton mentioning, I want my title back. I want the ring. I want to win. I want to win. I want to win. But it doesn't feel like the actions are matching because here we are at trade deadline, and we've only seen the 2 moves. And so, yes, it doesn't fully make sense, but I think that as we all have seen from this team consistently, they firmly believe in the group that they've got.
Yeah.
And it has been a slump, and what makes it harder right now is the slump. You look at yesterday's game, and we'll talk about it some, of course. Frustrating. I mean,
did they play yesterday?
All the losses as of late have been incredibly
yesterday.
frustrating. 5 straight series of losing the first.
Why would you bring that up? They didn't.
5 straight series of losing the series opener.
Who are the Phillies?
4 straight series losses. It's been frustrating. So, of course, the easy thing to say is go out and trade. Get rid of everybody. Let's clean house and bring in some new guys.
Yeah.
But it is a slump, and so I do want to touch on the numbers.
Might be coming out of their slump that they just went into which lasted almost 25 games.
They
almost
literally
30.
have lost 1 out of 11 series.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 out of 11 series. I don't think.
But it is possible to come out of these things.
The city might burn down. People are already comparing the Phillies to the Eagles. 10-1 start.
Win 1 more.
That's
what they call a streak.
Have you seen
I've
that?
seen that. The 10-1 graphics.
I've
seen a lot of this. Come on, it's not that. Come on.
This is not the 10-1 situation. We're not manifesting that.
We're all going to be scarred for a lifetime
so
from that Eagles season, but that's not what's going on here. This team is still built to compete, even if there are no additions from here.
Right.
They're going to be in the mix. Now, the thing is, you just think about October or November, and you're in a position where now you have to go to the bullpen, and there's nobody left but Gregory Soto.
Ooh.
Bingo.
And how do you feel about that? So
I feel terrified.
It's like now's the time. This is the last chance you have to get reinforcements.
Oh, that's it. Rosters are complete at 6 o'clock. We're done.
This is, unfortunately, the only 2 moves that we've seen. They aren't the most exciting right now because everybody wanted to get a Tanner Scott, Luis Robert, of Rosarena, and yes, it's frustrating. So the 2 guys, I feel like there's a lot of questions in the chat. If you guys hadn't checked out our emergency pods we had this past weekend, Friday and Saturday, we did a really good job of just sharing all the insight around the numbers, who Austin Hayes is, as well as who Carlos Estevez is.
Yeah, they happened to do that after I was like 6 watermelon mojitos deep. Thanks, guys.
Sorry. But it does feel like people aren't understanding. Starting with Austin Hayes, a big reason why they brought him in is, one, it was mentioned, they've been actually trying to bring Hayes in the last few seasons ahead of the trade deadline and haven't been able to do so. Last year, he was an all-star. The numbers he has so far this year aren't great. He's hitting 255, 316, 395 with 3 home runs, 14 RBIs, and a .711 OPS in 175 plate appearances coming into his time with the Phillies. And in 72 plate appearances against lefties, he's hitting 328, 394, 500 with 1 homer, 7 RBIs. Austin Hayes has had a lot of injuries this season. He's been in and out of the lineup, and a big reason why the Phillies actually liked him is they felt like with more playing time, with more opportunity, the numbers can be a lot more similar to what we saw last year. He is still batting a .894 OPS against lefties, which is 41st out of 212 players with 70 or more plate appearances against them. And he's got a .585 OPS against righties this year. And they really want to just give him opportunities to be that everyday left fielder, thinking that'll help him improve back to where he was before, because he did have career numbers last year where he hit career highs.
He was an all-star.
As an all-star, he hit career highs in runs and OPS and a lot of different aspects of his game offensively. But then defensively, the thing that they have talked about that I'm hoping is the case that we'll see is he's a guy that does more than just a stat show. He's gritty. He works hard. He's blue collar. He'll make the ugly plays. He'll take that dive. He'll run into the wall for the team. Whatever it takes to help make big plays. So hopefully we'll get to see that Austin Hayes with the Phillies.
Yeah, and I really think I think where this ultimately ends up. When everybody first heard the news of the trade, everyone immediately thought platoon. Here's a guy who crushes lefties, and you have Marsh that crushes righties. There's your left field platoon, and you've put together, in the aggregate, like a really great player. I think we were all taken a little off guard when Thompson said he wanted to play him every day, but I do see the logic behind what they're doing here, which is, all right, the guy was an all-star last year. He hasn't been this bad against righties. Let's see what he can do. And that's what they're doing right now because they've built this big lead in the division. They've given themselves the luxury to be able to test things out like this and say, Hayes, maybe he is actually an everyday player. I do think if it doesn't work out, you'll eventually see him back in a platoon role with Marsh.
with the Marsh and Rojas flexibility there to kind of put Marsh in either, it really allows you a little bit. And I think Rob Thompson over the course of the last 3-4 weeks with Soto, with some other stuff, he's been experimenting, and that's the luxury of having a big division lead. And if you're just tuning in or you've been with us, we are doing the MLB Trade Deadline Show, 25 minutes until the deadline. And this, of course, is presented and brought to you by Indeed. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. That's Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And we're also brought to you by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why. It's never ordinary at Bet365. So Paul DeJong, imagine being trapped in prison that is the AL Central. Just changing dugouts tonight, going from the White Sox to the Royals. That's got to be weird to just be in the series that you get traded and you just walk over to the other dugout like, hey, guys, you got a hat? That's so
jersey?
weird.
Hi, teammates.
Yeah, that's so weird.
I actually cannot get over, as much as we've been following the Phillies and whatever your feelings are about them, the thing that I am most annoyed about is the amount of players that have been traded mid-game. To be in the middle of a play, and it's like, oh, sorry, you got to come out. We just traded you out of here. It's
Bryce
like, guys.
Harper's in the lineup tonight, so I don't think they're going to move him. They're not pulling him from the lineup.
That's good news.
Yeah,
So
I feel pretty good about Bryce's future here.
It's just wild to me to think about how many moves have been made.
Last few games, maybe they are becoming sellers and shock the world.
Tyler has a list, the updated list. It does feel to me like this has been one of the more active trade deadlines in a while. Which is cool. It's good for baseball.
Yeah.
Maybe this extra wild card spot has made it a more active trade deadline because more teams feel like they're involved. Tyler, how many players have been traded over the past week now?
Yeah, a lot. I'm just going to give you a list of just Marlins players specifically.
Do they have enough to field a team tonight?
So I was going to ask you guys, does anybody, Renee, you travel for work a lot. You have any frequent flyer miles? We might be able to get down to Miami and play tonight.
Actually, I got to connect.
My arm's a little sore, but I think I could give you an inning or two.
You want a Marlins Jason Stark stat before you read the players?
This might be the
list that I'm about to give you. I was just working on my football routes and some downfield play. I can maybe translate that to the outfield. Just give me a glove. I think I'm ready.
Yeah,
an outfield play,
So the Marlins, they've hit 91 home runs this year. They now have traded 3 guys who have hit more than half of them in Jazz Chisholm, Josh Bell, and Brian De La Cruz.
Yeah, that's
they've pretty much blown their team up more so than any team has ever blown a team up.
They said they were going to do it, and they did it. I got to commend a team that actually follows their words with actions, because we've been hearing about the Marlins, which is why the Jazz Chisholm rumors to possibly the Phillies came out, and everywhere he was rumored to go, because we know the Marlins have been active. So Tyler, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
And Tyler, just to tease the final 22 minutes here, Craig Misch, who works for the MLB Network, is a senior contributor, just tweeted, "Oh my God, more trades are coming. This is wild."
That's not a surprise. I mean, so here's the thing. I think a lot of people don't understand is just because the trade is not announced before 6 o'clock does not mean that the trade doesn't go through. As long as
usually by 6:15, you kind of have it all tied up, right?
I'm about to say something super dated. As long as the fax goes through,
Well,
They're good.
that has happened
I don't think
in
they're sending
other
fax
leagues.
anymore. But
No, that has happened,
Dave Dombrowski
actually.
is desperately trying
Buy
to
a
feed
fax
paper
machine.
into a fax machine, trying to lock down Luis Robert Jr.
Actually, ask Orlando.
Get that IT kid up here.
Ask Orlando
How do
City
I turn
about
this into a PDF?
not sending a document. It
I
happened in
forgot the
soccer.
attachment. Damn it.
You guys make fun, but it just happened this past year in MLS with a deal that did not go through because they did not hit send. It happened still.
Unbelievable.
So the Marlins have hit send quite a bit over the last 5 days. You brought up a couple names, Jamie. Jazz Chisholm goes to the Yankees, Brylan De La Cruz to the Pirates, Josh Bell ends up in Arizona. They moved Tanner Scott, of course.
By the way, to Arizona of all places.
I
Josh
know.
Bell.
Not
Not
only are you playing them soon,
Can't
but you just
stand
feel like
you.
now you're on a crash course to see Josh Bell in a
Yeah,
playoff
it's
series.
And he
inevitable.
plays so great against the Phillies. But
Yeah.
go
I'll
ahead.
keep going, Tyler.
Tanner Scott to the Padres
Yes.
for $7 million prospects. Trevor Rogers is out the door to,
By the way,
to Baltimore.
stinks, right?
So
I've never once seen Trevor Rogers on the mound and been
That's-
like, oh, the Phillies don't have a chance tonight.
That's what you and I were talking about yesterday or earlier today. Was it seems like obviously the market's pretty inflated right now for a lot of
Yeah.
people, but starting pitching market, and maybe that's why Flaherty and Crochet haven't been moved yet. Maybe
Another
they're just asking
Marlins
for
trade
a ton.
is incoming. Somebody just tweeted.
AJ Puck was moved. Brian Haining was moved. JT Chagua was moved. And they're apparently, according to Jason Stark, still open to business, and that leads to another trade apparently.
Yeah, the Mets are.
just made a move.
Oh man, this name.
I got it.
You're gonna do it because
Yeah.
I am gonna butcher that.
So the Mets are acquiring reliever Huáscar Brazoban from
Great
the
job,
Marlins.
Renee. Great job. I would have said something.
What were you gonna go with?
Nah, that's not even. No need to
I
even
think
broach
that,
it.
I think the HU is a Huáscar.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Brazoban.
So,
You're correct.
So Tyler, to your
Thank you.
point, the Marlins have blown it up even more.
So I have a question. Do they have? I think I saw somebody tweet out, "Last one out, turn the lights off." Like,
Get the door on your way out. Lock the door.
what are they? Are they going to have guys to field a team tonight? Do they play tonight? Because
Oh, they're definitely gonna have to. Oh no! I did it again.
Renee.
Oops! I did
Yes,
it
they're
again.
playing. They are in their home state playing the Tampa Rays.
Is,
tonight.
is
Trade
Jake
deadline
Berger
madness is
available to
wild.
pitch tonight?
That is interesting. They have. What's it like to be in that locker room right now? I mean, I guess you're just happy you're getting a check. If
Quiet.
You're still there. Yeah, like dead beyond belief.
It's just like what happened with my Miller Lite.
This
Blowing up right now.
we know that they probably overperformed last year. Like, were they as good as their record indicated? Probably not. But like, they were in the postseason less than a year ago.
I know.
Yeah.
Even if they took a natural regression, and I know that their starting rotation was just decimated by injuries this year, but like, they went from a wild card team to being the blow up team of the trade deadline.
Shouldn't have got rid of Jeets. Shouldn't have forced him out. You know, go Jeets, go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have 18 minutes until the deadline. Some people in the know certainly teasing something that could happen. Once 6 o'clock hits, we'll kind of recap all the major news. I would imagine, I thought Jack Flaherty was going to be a lock to be traded. Still plenty of time for him to get moved. I'm kind of curious about Blake Snell. Of course, Garrett Crochet, and it looks like Luis Robert Jr. probably not going to get moved. They can certainly do that this offseason. But then again, they're a trash organization, so who knows? But we'll find out here. It's an interesting final 18 minutes, and it does feel more active than years past. It does seem like baseball's kind of like starting to get it from the other
I think
sports.
so. I think
You
so.
know?
It's good for baseball. It might be bad for the Phillies. You know, the best thing that could happen if the Phillies aren't making deals, the best thing that could happen would be none of the other contenders are making deals also. And that's,
Yeah, the
that's not-
Dodgers
that's not what
haven't
we're
done
seeing right
anything
now.
big yet, which is huge to
God,
me. Because,
stop that. Don't
Well,
say that.
All right.
I mean, it's technically a fact.
Nothing
but
I
I don't
say right
like-
now is going to affect what the Dodgers are doing.
I don't know.
They're not watching, Renee. They're
I
on the
think
trade
they are.
deadline. Yeah.
Shout out to everybody watching on YouTube and Twitter because hopefully we're not jinxing ourselves right now. I will say it does feel like this year, when you look at even the draft and how fast you're getting guys that are drafted into the minor league system, the trade's a lot more active. It does feel like baseball is starting to pick things up a little bit in terms of the other stuff that's exciting.
outside the line
Yeah, like that
stuff.
stuff is
Yeah.
so exciting to be sitting like we're doing right now by the computer, by the phone, watching with bated breath to see who's getting moved, which teams are bolstering up
every
their rosters,
notification
everything. You're swiping and
incessantly here.
updating. So it's nice to see. Plus, it also, what I'm looking forward to is what is the league going to look like after this? Because a team like the Marlins, who are going to be completely different. The Yankees look very different. The Padres, we have to almost go back through and rehash what each team looks like now because there's been some major changes.
Not the Phillies, but Jeff Passan. The Baltimore Orioles are finalizing a deal to acquire outfielder Eloy Jimenez from the Chicago White Sox, sources tell ESPN. And I say big one. It's not league-shattering, but it is interesting that they went and got an outfielder right after getting rid of an outfielder. Kind of gives me a little bit of worry about what they think of Austin Hayes.
Yeah, I mean, they were not concerned about parting with him.
It actually made sense, allegedly, from everything from the Orioles side, that they were ready to move on from him. He was a big part of their kind of rebuild, and they wanted some fresh personnel in there.
You know what that sounds like? Really nice GM talk.
Yeah. But again, the Phillies got rid of two guys for him. That's realistically in Christian Pache and Sir Anthony Dominguez. Is anybody losing sleep over that trade? It's subtraction. It's addition by subtraction. It's two guys that we've seen enough of. We know they're not going to help the Phillies, and now you can at least take a chance for Austin Hayes. It is not great to see them then immediately bring in another outfielder and replace him, but he was already their weakest. He was their weakest outfielder.
Eloy Jimenez is not like a earth-shattering move. It's probably more of a depth move. Tyler, any thoughts?
Genuine, and I'm not asking this to be facetious or a jerk or anything. Can Eloy Jimenez run yet? He's been hurt 4 times this year, and I know I'm pretty sure he had some soft tissue issues.
He's probably more of a bench bat. I think they're going to play a young.
Right? Yeah, I was going to say I think they have a young outfielder that they're looking to.
Right, I think Hayes was already squeezed out of at-bats, right?
Yeah, so I think Jimenez is the backup. He's cheaper. He's a cheaper backup.
I may have overinflated it when I said big. I saw the Orioles and said...
You just got excited.
Championship
Well,
move.
Mark Fison did say that never say never until the deadline is passed, but it appears that the Rays will not be trading. So here's a news not being traded. Yandy Diaz, according to sources, is not going anywhere. So the Rays have been pretty active as well of shipping a lot of guys out and selling. Apparently, Diaz is not one of them.
So Eloy Jimenez has been back with the White Sox on a pretty permanent basis since the end of June, early July. A whole bunch of offers involved, a couple of 1-for-4s, a couple of 2-for-4s, but the average has been right around 230. He's up to 240 now. His OBP's always been pretty low. He's not a huge walks guy. Power seemingly has been sapped, and I know that injuries probably play a part in that, but he only has 5 home runs this year, and he hasn't hit one since May 14th. Over the course of, I guess, is basically 30-some-odd, 40-some-odd games at this point, slashing 240, 297, 345. And we've talked.
OPS plus is only 81.
We talked about it. The injuries have really, really plagued him over the course of the season. I'm not so sure he's probably a bench bat for that.
Yeah, he's probably a bench bat, definitely. I mean, Santander just hit his 30th last night. They have O'Hearn. They're loaded at outfield. So it's not surprising to see the Orioles being big-time players here at the deadline with 13
Oh, my God.
minutes
It feels like Christmas Eve.
Come on, Dave.
Are you guys one of
minutes.
those that counts down for the holidays also, or is it just me?
Just you. I mean, I'm generally calendar illiterate.
But Renee, you also think your birthday's a month long.
Advent calendars with the chocolates.
And now I do it with the kids. Yeah.
The kids.
And my birthday is just a little over a month from today. It might be a month and 8 days, but who's counting? And almost a month, 8 days.
We'll start counting like 2
God.
days away. That's how birthdays work.
Tyler,
Actually,
mark that down. A month and 8 days.
A
We
month,
can't forget.
8 days, 2 hours, and about 25 minutes.
Wait, hold on. We have a trade. The Philadelphia Phillies
traded me.
This is according to Robert Murray. The Philadelphia Phillies are acquiring left-hander Tanner Banks from the Chicago White Sox, according to a source familiar with the deal.
We haven't gotten the official deal yet.
So we know they're talking to the White Sox.
Bum, bum, bum.
I mean, maybe they just haven't announced the Luis Robert Jr. part yet. You know?
Right.
You're still holding on
They
to
led
that?
with Tanner Banks.
But this is one of those lower-level moves that we talked about. Could be realistic. The left-handed pitcher market out there was heating up. A lot of teams were looking for them. And Tanner Banks becomes a Philly.
It's not official yet.
Well, Robert Murray's very good.
Okay.
So, I mean, he's somebody I trust. Now, he did not make my notification cut
No,
list.
I have to say. I don't
but
see.
he is good.
So Banks
I'm waiting for a second
he's got
confirmation, but he's
career
a
3.89
Yeah, it is,
ERA.
John.
Oh, it's happened.
4.13
You
ERA in
doubted
2020.
Robert Murray. Sorry, go ahead, John.
Sorry, just give us some numbers here for Tanner Banks. This season, 4.13 ERA, 1.29 WHIP for his career, 3.89 ERA, 1.21 WHIP. You did think they were probably going to add a left-hander.
Yes.
It just the numbers game made sense because they were looking for a reliever, and then they traded away Sir Anthony. So you figured, and then they got one reliever back in Estevez. So you figured they were probably going to bring someone else in, and you figured there's probably going to be a left-hander because, all right, now from the right-handed side, you've got Hoffman, Estevez, Kirkering, that you feel pretty good about all these guys. But from the left side, Strom, Alvarado has been a little bit shaky lately, and that's about it. Unless you throw in Soto, who's been getting tested out in high leverage situations recently, and not exactly
Our
passing.
first tweet says you misspelled Luis Robert.
I like it. The thing about Tanner Banks that he adds is, first of all, there were other teams, including the Mets, that were talking to the White Sox about Tanner Banks. So great that the Phillies were able to lock him in. He just turned 33. He turns 33 in October. I wonder if he's got his birthday countdown going. He will not be arbitration eligible this offseason. And as you talk about his numbers with that 4.13 ERA, 55 strikeouts, 2 saves, and 48 innings pitched this season, Banks also has a .505 OPS against left-handed hitters this season, which does make him a nice, appealing addition. For him, he's not someone, as you mentioned, that's going to be that bullpen arm that's going to come in and completely drastically change the makeup of this bullpen, but another person that you can count on as maybe a middle leverage situation guy. But I think it's a move and we'll still officially get the details of what was moved for him.
Yeah, probably. I
but
wouldn't
it seems
expect
like
a ton.
a nice small move.
He's going to be a lefty specialist type. His splits on the year, excuse me if one of you guys already read this, I don't think you did, but versus left-handed batters, 184 this year. You didn't hit this, right? 308
No.
versus right-handed batters. His on-base versus lefties is low, 229. 372 versus right-handed batters. Has given up, only 1 home run versus lefties, 4 versus righties. So very much a left-handed specialist for the team. We've given the Nerd Research Department an assignment here. Tyler, how you feeling about our new boy, Tanner
Checking
Banks?
in from the NRD.
Yeah, I think this is strictly a lefty matchup, obviously.
Yeah.
You gave the pretty apparent numbers that he doesn't pitch well against righties and pitches well against lefties. This is a guy who, with a 4.1 ERA, whose expected numbers are a little bit better than his real numbers, so maybe a little bit of a hard luck loser. If you like pitching run value, don't look at this guy.
Oh, okay.
He's at a 9 in off-speed run value and a 21 overall, percentage-wise. But I will say this. His K rate is high. He throws a lot of strikes, 80% strike rate. 80th percentile. He doesn't walk a ton of guys, just under 7% of the at-bats finish in a walk. He doesn't get barreled a ton. Pretty high ground ball rate at 48%. I think this is strictly a lefty move, and I'm curious, too, thinking about contract, which I don't know off the top of my head, if this is more of a 2-year move as opposed to a 1-year move. But I would have to take a look at his contract
He
to see.
signed a 1-year, $755,000 deal with the White Sox, guaranteed. So it looks like it is just a rental.
Okay, so it is a rental. Heavy slider use.
wait.
Another rental.
Wait, I'm sorry. It says he's pre-arbitration eligible till next year. We're going to have to deep into that.
So he's got a ton of years left
Yeah,
if he's
yeah,
pre-arb
yeah.
eligible.
Yeah.
That's what, so he was drafted in 2014, but he didn't make it to the majors until
So
2022.
here's what Matt Gelb just tweeted out. They've acquired Tanner Banks from the White Sox, according to a source who's 32. He will be a multi-inning reliever who could return to starting at some point.
So, and see, there what we were talking about.
That's his benefit.
We've talked about a couple of times over the last
Renee
week
mentioned
that
it earlier.
if they bring in a guy, it probably would be somebody who could kind of be a swing gate and do both.
Another update real quick. Garrett
I saw
Crochet
that.
will not be traded.
But this is why.
Okay.
You had Garrett Crochet and
Didn't
Tanner
say
Banks.
Luis Robert, though.
Garrett Crochet and Tanner Banks, 2 guys that can play in the bullpen and also can pitch as starters. Tanner Banks, I have heard nothing from. He's been quiet. His camp's been quiet, and you're able to get him for a cheap deal for the most part. I don't know what the Phillies gave up, but it doesn't.
Hasn't come out
Yeah,
yet.
we're still
Hasn't come out
waiting.
yet.
But you also have for this deal. I want to just make note, guys. We were on to something. We wanted to trade with the White Sox. Check, and we wanted to trade for a reliever named Tanner.
Pretty close. Yeah, so pretty
What
close.
we missed was it's Tanner Banks, not Tanner Scott, and not Luis
Details,
Robert.
right?
But a trade did happen with the White Sox, and a trade did happen for a Tanner, guys. We got our Tanner. We got our White Sox trade.
Here's what concerns me maybe about Tanner Banks, though, is that this feels a little bit like Austin Hayes all over again. Like, you look at him, and your initial reaction is, okay, look at these enormous splits. 849 OPS right-handed hitters against him, 492 OPS left-handed hitters against him. Okay, this makes a ton of sense bringing him in as a lefty specialist, just like it made a ton of sense bringing in Hayes as part of a platoon with Marsh. But now you hear from the Gelb tweet that, well, maybe they're looking at him to do a little more than that, to be, maybe they just need this line you've heard over and over, starting with Whit Merrifield, that maybe they just need more playing time, more opportunities to really show what they can do.
I think that makes sense, though. I mean, honestly, when you look at the numbers for what Tanner Banks has pitched, he has gotten a little bit better as the season has progressed. So, in the month of July, he's got a 3.72 ERA. He has a 3.38 ERA in the month of June, compared to how he started with a ERA higher than 4.38 and a 5 in April. And he has gotten a little bit better. He has only pitched in total so far this season. He's had 48 innings pitched so far this season, but that's kind of around the number of what he pitches in general. He is a guy that gives you flexibility, and I feel like what the Phillies also have gone for, Austin Hayes is a guy that can play left field if needed, can slot into center field if needed, can be a platoon.
Right,
You've got Tanner Banks who can be both. So I think they're going for those cheap short-term rentals that kind of test them out, see what they can add. And
I guess, but what sort of championship team is looking for their everyday left fielder and a potential? We're talking about this guy as a potential starting role. It doesn't match up to where they are right now as an organization.
For trial guys.
I think we're just trying to get the starting staff some rest by the playoffs, because if you don't have Ranger, I guess you're kind of a little bit screwed.
You need somebody to eat innings.
If Zach's back is a little bit wonky,
Even for the relief, the bullpen arms to have a guy that can be a multiple innings reliever, I think is also good. I guess so. They will come in for him, Austin Hayes especially, as those guys and can help lessen the load a little bit.
So here's the scouting report on him real quick to just give people a little bit of a background on him. This is courtesy of Thomas Nestico, who is a Tyler and Nerd research level pitching guy on steroids. He throws 5 pitches, so he has a deep arsenal. He throws his slider 32.5% of the time, averaging about 88 miles an hour. His four-seamer just below 30% of the time.
Jack Flaherty's off the board.
To the Yankees?
He's not off the board yet. I'm sorry. In serious discussions.
Jumping the gun?
Sorry. I got to read. Reading is fundamental. The Dodgers are in serious discussions to acquire right-handed pitcher Jack Flaherty from the Tigers, according to Ken Rosenthal. Sources are telling the Athletic.
All right, well, they got
the decision apparently rests with Detroit.
Real quick to finish it out, four-seamer hits almost 94 miles an hour. He's got a changeup he throws about 16% of the time at 86 miles an hour. Curveball 15.5% of the time, 82 miles an hour, and does have a sinker that he throws occasionally almost 7% of the time. So he's kind of a deep arsenal lefty. Can go bullpen, can go starter for you. He serves a role.
So, I mean,
he's not naked cartwheel worthy outside Billy Murphy.
Oh, well, I'm happy for that we don't have to see.
I think that's smart depth.
That's where I'm going with it, Jamie. I think you got to look at them and say,
Dodgers.
Jack Flaherty is going to the Dodgers, guys. Jeff Passage just broke it. It's happened. I'm so sorry. Dang
Dodgers.
it. The Dodgers
great news.
do just continue to find ways to pull money from everywhere to be able to and make deals happen. They've had all these injuries, and now they bring in one of the biggest names on the board, and Jack Flaherty.
Yeah.
Do you guys want the return for Tanner Banks?
Yeah.
What the Phillies are sending to Chicago?
Oh, yes.
So Scott Merkin, the White Sox beat writer for MLB.com, tweets out, it looks like it is going to be infielder William Bergoya.
Wow.
Going back to Chicago.
That's it?
That's a big.
Yes, I mean
that's
it's one
big
player.
Piece, though. They've been however on him internally.
Yeah, they really liked Bergoya a lot.
That's actually kind of shocking. That's a hefty price for a rental. I mean, they must.
I'll be honest. I hope I'm wrong, but this is. I don't like this at all.
They must.
I'm trying to stay optimistic, but what are we doing?
What that price tells me is that they're counting on him to start.
Yeah, this is again. You're taking a guy who has an obvious platoon role, just like Hayes. You're taking a guy who he has 5 pitches that makes you think he can be a starter or a bulk guy, But then you look at it, and he can't pitch against right-handed batters. His numbers against right-handed batters are terrible. He's a lefty-only guy right now. So you're hoping he's going to be more, just like you're hoping Hayes is going to be more and be your everyday left fielder. And again, what sort of moves are these for a team on the doorstep of a championship?
As we're talking through the quote-unquote breaking news for the Phillies acquiring Tanner Banks, that the Dodgers are acquiring Jack Flaherty.
Yes.
Like these are the types of moves, and that's why all day today, as I was watching every other team make moves, I'm like, all right, Phillies, do something. And they've made 3 moves. The most exciting one, in my opinion, is Carlos Estevez. But ultimately, Austin Hayes and Tanner Banks are trial guys that you're picking up at the trade deadline. Yes, as we mentioned, to maybe be able to help eat innings, alleviate some of the management of the bullpen and the starting pitchers, but you are on the doorsteps of winning a World Series, and it just sounds to me like they need some help. We always talk about finding the right candidates and finding the right additions to be able to bring in, and maybe they needed to find the right additions and help with something like Indeed. Our friends over at Indeed do a great job with helping to hire, to find you the right match. It's tough out here. There's such a large pool of names to pull from and bring into your organization, just like the Phillies are struggling with now at the trade deadline. Well, with Indeed, they're driven by the search for better. And they're also driven to make sure that when it comes to hiring, they want to make sure you can find the candidates that match. And it's not really a search. It's a match. It's allowing you to find those great candidates. And if you need and hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to their data. And they have as a matching engine the ability to help find quality candidates fast. So you can get rid of the busy work. You can use Indeed for scheduling, screening, messaging, and that way you can connect with your candidates faster, start having those initial conversations, plan those initial interviews as well. And with Indeed, they want to just make sure that you're hiring quality candidates. 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality. And if you don't believe us, you can check them out for yourself. As listeners of the show, you will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now. Support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed from here. PHLY Phillies podcast. Again, that's Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, you need Indeed.
Yeah, and I want to tell you about our friends over at TrueMark Financial Credit Union. We're right here in East Falls, and that means a TrueMark branch is nearby because they are located right here in the area, headquartered in Fort Washington, 24 area locations across the area. And if you're traveling for Phillies away games like I recently was out in Wrigleyville, it's still easy to keep track of your spending with the TrueMark Financial mobile app. The mobile app allows access anytime, anywhere. You can check balances, view transactions, make transfers, pay bills, all from the convenience of your mobile phone. You can add your cards to your mobile wallet for easy in-store and online payment. The boomer of me fights that move all the time, but I'm coming around. Planning on buying a house? Well, TrueMark Financial's mortgage specialists can offer guidance and loan options and terms. They'll help you assess your finances and credit score to determine your borrowing capacity, save for a down payment, and budget for closing costs. TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA as an equal opportunity lender. For more information, visit TrueMark.com/PHLY. All right, it looks like...
Got more news.
What do we got?
It's 6:02, and some more news is coming through. All right, so...
Jack Flaherty is going to his hometown team, the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Mark Faison has reported that the Cardinals outfielder Dylan Carlson is being traded to the Rays. And
reliever
Sean Armstrong is going back to the Cardinals for Carlson. And then also John Heyman has reported that Luis Garcia is going from the Angels to the Red Sox. We heard the Red Sox saying they're looking for a move. And then apparently there's nothing more from the Cubs. The Cubs are done. Jameson Taillon is staying. And so the last 2 moves that we've seen, again, it's Dylan Carlson going to the Rays, and the move is for reliever Sean Armstrong, as well as the move with Luis Garcia from the Angels to the Red Sox.
Yeah, so obviously the Jack Flaherty news, a little bit of a kick to the junk here at the trade deadline as one of the contending teams for the Phillies in the NL, the Los Angeles Dodgers, makes a pretty big splash. Now, what does this mean for the Dodgers? Tyler Glasnow is back from injury. He's Tyler Glasnow. He's quite good. He's at the top of the rotation. Jack Flaherty will likely join him at the top of the rotation. You have Gavin Stone. Walker Buehler is on his rehab assignment in AAA. Yamamoto is nearing a mid to late August return for the Dodgers. And then, of course, you still have that old Cooperstown bound.
Get a pretty good pitcher next year, too.
Yeah, and Clayton Kershaw still hanging around. They got talent all over their pitching staff now when the guys do get back from injury. John, Renee, Tyler, the Dodgers just got a lot better.
Yeah.
They sure did. It's the Dodgers are in a similar position to the Phillies. The Dodgers could easily say what the Phillies did and said, "Hey, look, where we're going to go is going to be based on what our stars do. You know, we're hanging around near the top of the league right now. It's really up to those guys to get it done."
The trade just got completed. The Dodgers gave up Jack Flaherty. The Tigers are receiving Theron Lizarno and Trey Sweeney. We'll have to look up how they rank internally in the Dodgers system. Tyler, do you know much about them off the top of your head?
Lorenzo ranks 8th.
Lorenzo, 8th.
He is a high A. So they have him listed as a catcher, first baseman.
Okay.
Do I know
like a DH future to
Do
me.
I know anything about him? No, I don't. 45 hit tool, 55 power tool. Can't run a lick. Arm is a 60 though, and he's got an overall 50 hit tool. He was signed out of the Dominican Republic in 21 for $30,000. He is a switch hitter with what looks to be a little bit of pop. I don't know if it's from both sides or not, but just reading up on his scouting report real quick, they seem to believe that his power tool and his arm tool are going to be his two best attributes. Whether he does end up catching or not still remains to be seen. And who was the other one, Jamie?
I've lost it. I've already moved on Twitter, so I'm sorry. I can find it again in a second.
Trey Sweeney, you said,
Trey
correct?
Sweeney, yes. Yeah.
He is the Dodgers' 22nd prospect. And remember, these prospect rankings haven't been relisted just yet, so maybe they move up and down a little bit. But he is kind of your overall type of player.
I would imagine he hasn't moved past 13th in their organization. That would be a pretty big jump.
He's an overall type of player. He was drafted 20th overall in 2021. He's with AAA Oklahoma City. A 50 hit tool, a 50 power tool, a 45 run, a 55 arm, a 50 field. Pretty across the board. Seems to be a low floor or a high floor type of guy. Ceiling kind of remains to be seen. He hit 248 in AA a couple years ago. 6'2", 212. Expected to be a shortstop, but so it seems to be the 22nd overall prospect, at least ranked right now, and the number 8 prospect in the Dodgers system.
Screw Los Angeles Dodgers. I hope them the worst. I hope they all stub their toes every single morning. Guys, it looks like, barring a miracle here, this is it. I would surmise this trade deadline as a bunch of smart moves that didn't cost you a ton. Although
the Dodgers aren't done.
Bergoya is kind of surprising. I wonder if there's been some evaluation changes on him internally this year. What do the Dodgers do now?
The Dodgers are reportedly acquiring Kevin Kiermaier from the Blue Jays.
I thought he just retired, or he just said at the end of the year.
Reports. I thought so.
No, that was Kevin Pillar.
I thought there was.
I thought Kiermaier said he's retiring.
Did he also? Because
I
know Pillar said he was going to hang him up at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's apparently happening right now.
The Dodgers can go to hell. Getting back to the Phillies.
I think it's a smart.
Oh, you are correct. Kiermaier is also going to retire at the end of the year.
Not a go for
Apparently
it.
he's retiring in LA.
I don't even know if that's fair because they are to a degree going for it, but it's not a sexy deadline.
Right.
Yeah.
There's nothing fun about this for Phillies fans, and that's okay. The fun move isn't always the right move.
They got better.
Correct.
In 2008, the Dodgers got Manny Ramirez, the 2008 shtick, right? The Dodgers got Manny Ramirez. The Brewers got CC Sabathia, and it was the Phillies and their Joe Blanton move, which nobody liked at the time. But it was smart and it made sense and they got it done. Now, I will say, on the face of it, though, this isn't great. We're looking at Tanner Banks. Here's a tweet from Jason Stark. He's a nightmare matchup for left-handed hitters.
Sure.
34% strikeout rate. Struck out 28 out of 83 of them. But then you look at my good friend Mac Elb here. According to us, he'll be a multi-inning reliever who could return to starting at some point, and that's just we're hoping and wishing and planning for the future. While the Dodgers are like, "Hey, we're going to win a world championship this year." That's what it feels like.
I think that's the biggest thing when you look at all of these moves, and I definitely want you guys in the chat on Twitter and on YouTube for everybody that's tuned in. First of all, we appreciate you. Let us know your thoughts as well, because to be honest, this is the ultimate question of it's not the flashy moves. Did the Phillies get better? Did they improve in the areas that they needed to improve? Because anybody can go out and you could make trades for Randy Rosarena, Luis Robert, and Garrett Crochet, and ship out and trade all these prospects and make moves. Did you make the team better now? Obviously, those moves would have been more exciting. They would have had Jamie streaking down the streets. And instead, we're talking about these moves that are a little bit more strategic. You look at somebody like, as we mentioned with Tanner Banks, to have the ability to flip between the bullpen and to flip between being a starting pitcher, you give up just one person. I know Bergoya, the Phillies were seeming pretty high on, but again, how many prospects did the Phillies give up? I know in the chat it was mentioned that in itself is a small win. You gave up a couple of prospects and our friend Sam Aldegheri, as well as George Clausen. You didn't have to give up a lot of prospects. You didn't have to give up your top 5. And also, you didn't have to make any moves that required you to lose a lot. So you added some pieces that can give you depth, that can give you multiple innings, that can give you versatility, and ultimately also help be able to maybe raise the bar. It's not a big jump, but let's be honest, guys, for everybody that's frustrated, the biggest change that the Phillies need could not happen at the trade deadline. It was Bryce, Kyle, Trey, Bryson, JT, them elevating their game, getting the offense going, getting the starting pitching back healthy and at a point where they can pitch 6-7 strong innings again, getting the bullpen back to being the best across the league. So these moves hopefully will help reset some of that, but the Phillies are going to win or lose based off of what happens with their top guns.
I think that's absolutely right. That's also what we said during the offseason.
Yes.
When we said, look, we're not seeing big moves at the winter meetings or during the entire offseason. And we said, well, you know what? It's really going to come down to whether the stars that are already on the team perform. The Phillies have already made their moves. But then you look at a team like the Dodgers who are always looking to improve.
The Orioles just brought in another outfielder.
And make changes. The Orioles, how many moves have they made? And the Phillies just seem content to say, okay, either our guys are going to perform or they're not.
Yeah.
And as a strategy, it makes sense. And we might sit here in 2030 and look back at, 3 straight Phillies championships and say, can you believe we were sitting in Billy Murphy's Irish Saloon and we wanted the trade MVP Aiden Miller and we wanted the trade,
Well, the one I'm going to look back on, because I can't be upset if the White Sox don't move Luis Robert. If you know anything about me, I've been very horny for Luis Robert for the past several months.
For anybody that's just tuning in, he means that in the most professional way possible.
In a baseball way, you sickos.
You're the one that said the weird words.
But I can't get mad about that because he didn't get traded, right? Like, that's stupid. Right. The one I'm going to kind of monitor in the part of my brain that eats the rest of myself alive is the Randy Arozarena deal. Now, you were going to have to give up. The reason I bring this up is the Phillies may have seen more 3 minimal moves as a bigger upgrade than just one Randy Arozarena. Because if you were going to get involved with the Arozarena deal, a William Bergoya ilk caliber prospect was going to be involved. So they might have viewed it as, all right, well, we can get Hayes, who we view, somewhat worse than Arozarena, but we don't have to give up any prospect. That leaves us ability to go after arms in the bullpen that way. That's probably the way they viewed it. It's probably a smart way of looking at it without emotions involved. But Austin Hayes is going to have to be somewhat substantial for the Phillies. He's going to have to contribute to this team in a big way because they're counting on him.
Yeah. How many times, by the way, we're going to accidentally want to say Tanner Scott instead of Tanner Banks?
I know.
I could find myself tripping up on that.
And how many teams? How many left? We'll have to look at some of the playoff matchups and where the lefty, heavy lineup portions of the team are, and that's where I wouldn't imagine they don't want Tanner Banks pitching versus righties, but Austin Hayes, I think, is kind of.
You don't think you want Austin Hayes hitting the?
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Okay.
No. It just broke through officially.
Estevez, I think we can kind of count on as a good move, right? Like his numbers translate team to team. His numbers are filthy this year. Austin Hayes is kind of the guy that the trade deadline is going to hinge on here.
Yeah. We'll see what he does. And again, I get it. They're trying him out right now. Maybe he'll eventually end up in a platoon with Marsh. But you look at the numbers, and it just seems like obvious platoon. And you look at Tanner Banks' numbers, and it looks like
there is another move.
The Phillies have made another move.
Yes, I thought there was. My phone was lighting up.
Keely McDaniel just tweeted right-handed pitcher Seth Johnson headed from Baltimore to the Phillies. So a little bit of a trade pipeline has opened up between the Orioles and Phillies here.
So he's currently listed as the team's number 10 prospect. That's just on Baseball Savant. I'll try to get it on the Orioles site
That's not that exciting.
Yeah, when his MILB page comes up before his MLB page.
So
According to MLB.com, he's the eighth prospect.
This is
Yeah.
So
the Phillies have become sellers.
I'm curious to see what the move back is. If in one of the deeper farm systems for the, probably one of the deepest farm systems with the Orioles. Curious to see what the return actually is.
Yeah, he played for the Bowie, Maryland. I don't know their team name, but do they stick with birds across all their minor league levels?
Bowie's the Bay Sox.
Bowie's the Bay Sox.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, another non-substantial move.
And the Diamondbacks did just acquire
he's a
reliever
former
Dylan
first
Floro
rounder.
from the Nationals.
Yeah, it might be
Johnson
an
was a first
opportunity.
rounder.
He was available.
40th overall.
And they just said, fuck it, grab him.
You guys really standard line. He's 0-6 with a 2.6 ERA.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense, and that's why I tell you. Go ahead, Jamie.
He's not a real player?
No, wins are not a pitcher set.
Oh, wins are definitely not a pitcher set.
Had some
but
hard luck with Bowie, apparently.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe the record should be better than 0-6.
And the other one we didn't mention was left-handed pitcher Martin Perez is headed to the San Diego Padres. He stinks. I don't care about that one. But it is like now we'll start looking at the league and how it's shaping up. The Padres, on the two ends of the spectrum, you have the Padres who went for it in a mega huge super way, and then the Marlins who blew it up in a mega huge super way. A lot of teams, every team ended up getting involved in the trade deadline. The Minnesota Twins were the last team to do nothing, and that changed shortly after we went on the air after 5 o'clock. So everybody was involved.
Some other trades that have happened, because now also we're seeing who was being sent for these trades that happened. So the Diamondbacks are getting Dylan Floro from the Nationals. You're also seeing for the Reds trade, they traded outfielder Austin Slater to the Orioles. The Giants are receiving Mark Canha from the Tigers. So we're now getting the final details around who's been traded as well. But, it does feel like, once again, here we are. One thing, Blake Snell again was another guy rumored, much like in the offseason. Hasn't been moved. Garrett Crochet,
shocked by that.
Tarek Skubal.
The Giants actually bought a little bit. So.
Yeah, no big. So, now it does allow us to see it's 6:15, guys. It's 6:15, exactly what the landscape of the league starts to look like. Because as you mentioned, there's been some heavy buyers and some heavy sellers. Some teams are really pushing the chips in.
And then a lot of teams in the middle were like, I don't want to buy too much, but I think we might have a shot here.
Yeah.
I think it's our own Derek Bodner is exiting. Thank you to Derek for coming out here today. Real quick, Vince Pellegrini, our own Vince, sent me the baseball trade value Twitter account. They break down these trades at a much nerdier level than we do. They view the Los Angeles Dodgers move for Jack Flaherty as an overpay. It says their deal is rejected by their model as an overpay by Los Angeles.
Well, that's terrific. So after the NLC loss, I'll comfort myself by going and taking a look at the Slay overpay that the Dodgers did according to the model. All this would be easier to swallow.
You can't trade Jason Donald, John. You can't.
All this would be easier to swallow.
Don't even think about it.
If the Phillies...
Whoa, more. Oh, Gregory Soto went to the Orioles. Our own Jim Salisbury just tweeted that. So Soto is gone.
Wait, what?
Yeah, they must like this kid and think he's a longer-term piece for us.
I mean, they like Tanner Banks more than Soto as your lefty coming in, but I didn't see Soto closing out a World Series. I don't see Tanner Banks closing out a World Series.
If Gregory Soto came into a playoff game in a crucial spot, I would have shit my pants.
I mean, so not particularly concerned about losing Gregory Soto, but you shipped out a couple pretty valuable players in Vierling and Nick Maton. Who else did we?
So the Orioles. Phillies pipeline. The Phillies have now sent the Orioles Gregory Soto, Sterentin Dominguez, as well as Christian Pache.
Don't forget.
Very interesting. But you know what? These are three guys. It's so ironic what we complain about. Fans, audience, friends, because how many times have we heard people in our own chat, on Twitter, wherever else, complaining about Gregory Soto, complaining about Sterentin Dominguez,
I was a nervous wreck every time he came in.
We complained about him
as well. They got rid of all the nervous wreck guys.
So there's a positive. They got rid of a lot of the guys that we have found ourselves nervous about. We even said they're very inconsistent. Somebody like Gregory Soto will have 8-9 scoreless showings and then turn around and give up runs. Like, it was so up and down and so inconsistent. But unfortunately, I think the frustrating part is you're getting rid of the unknowns that we do know for unknowns that we don't know, and guys that we have no idea, still question marks, still have to kind of prove it in that sense because
I'm looking for
they've
the
been
chat.
shaky too.
Slade mentions
what's the temperature?
Kimbrel,
Not great.
Soto,
Not great.
and Sir Anthony out there on the Orioles.
Bold strategy, Cotton.
Maybe
right,
they're
Slade.
just like looking to the Orioles in the World Series, and these are sort of sleeper agents being sent over there.
I had a prediction of a Phillies-Orioles World Series matchup, and now this would make that way more intriguing and interesting if the Phillies and the Orioles matched up.
If the
Yeah,
Phillies
it
and the
sure
Orioles
would.
get to the World Series and those three if those three get high leverage outs, I will resign from this
I quit
company
sports.
Austin Hayes,
the next day.
2 outs in the ninth.
Yeah, I quit sports.
Versus
if that happened.
Kimbrel, right?
Oh, no. Don't put me in that
No.
special place in hell.
Let's not jinx ourselves. It's not going to happen, guys. Or the opposite. The Phillies see them in the World Series, and they do what they do best. Kimbrel crumbles, and Soto and Sir Anthony crumble, and they help the Phillies win. Maybe they're there. Maybe they're spies. Maybe much like Whit Merrifield.
Another one.
They're actually spies to go help the Phillies.
We talk about teams that kind of
Next level stuff, 3D
yeah,
chess.
Sure.
that teams in the middle that are still like pushing in and buying here at the deadline. The Diamondbacks got another, so our PHNX brothers and sisters out there. We got reliever Dylan Floro from the Nationals. So, this seems to pretty much wrap it up. I think anything else that would have broken would have been announced by now.
Padres are
almost
getting
20 after.
Padres are still getting some more pieces. They just got left-handed pitcher Martin Perez from the Pirates.
He stinks.
So now we're getting those small names and small acquisitions that are more just probably roster pieces or depth pieces
All right.
for teams.
So let's do the cliche thing, guys. Let's do it, all right?
Let's do the
Everybody
thing.
does it, so let's do it. Let's grade this trade deadline. I would give them because of the smart nature of the moves, it's not sexy, it's not the big splash, but I give them a solid A-, A. The Bergoya moving on from him for this guy tells me they like him a little bit. They haven't really steered me too wrong yet, so I'll give them an A-. How about you, Renee? I think they're a better team today than they were last Friday. It's not sexy. I could be talked into a B+, but an
I was going
A-
to say,
is.
I'm hovering around a B or a B+ because I just feel like although I like
This
on
is gut
paper,
reaction. We all reserve
Correct.
the right 24 hours from now to change our grade and throw it out, but I'll go A-.
I like
Yeah.
the disclaimer that you put in there.
Yeah.
And yes, in the chat, let us know your grades as well on Twitter and on YouTube. Let us know what you're grading this trade deadline for the Phillies, because I feel like a B or a B+, in my opinion. For the positive side, they did strategically pick guys that fit some of the areas of weakness and areas of concern. But on the other side, it's guys that are question marks. Like, I would have loved to have, I think, again, Carlos Estevez is the only one that I feel extremely confident on as a bullpen arm in a high leverage situation, which is an absolute need. I think the others are moves that is kind of like prove it deals of, the verdict is still out. It's going to take some time to truly know if this was a good trade or not, versus if you brought in a Randy Rosarena, Jack Flaherty, from the jump, this makes sense. So that's why I'm going to give it a B, because I think it's a risk. I think they really took a leap of faith in hoping that these guys are going to be able to work with the staff, work with the team, elevate their game to be able to help the Phillies. And as a win now World Series team, I would have rather have more definitive trade
appeal.
pieces that are going to come in day one and be able to help.
I think John's the most cynical so far.
Yeah. So it's like A-
I'm in a very different place than you all.
I love it.
This is good, so we get both angles. I give him a C-, D+.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, now you got to break it into 2 grades, I think, because long term, this may prove out to
there
be
is some long-term
Yes.
moves.
really
in
great.
this.
Not
Like the
losing
non-move,
prospects.
might be the
That's
best
a
move.
positive.
You didn't lose Painter or Miller or Crawford or Kaba, any of your top guys. We may look back at this deadline and say, wow, it was so smart not to move any of them. In terms of improving this year's team, the areas of concern, I don't know. I mean,
Estevez is the
Estevez
biggest.
is the
Yeah.
biggest.
Is the biggest.
And I love it. I love the move, and we'll see how it plays out. I think you could have did more for the outfield.
I agree.
I agree.
I totally agree.
I think
The
you're
offense
still kind of
could use
messy in the outfield. You could use some offensive help.
And that's what we talked about. Hayes kind of like is going to define this, right? Over
does.
the next 2 months.
That's a good point.
We're going to watch him, and if he ends up being great, you'll revise your grade. If he ends
Right,
up sucking, then we'll go, damn, John was right on
But
trade
on the
deadline
face
day.
of it, gut instinct, it doesn't feel like they're
C-.
much better today
Yeah.
than they were
Yeah.
prior to the trade deadline. I mean, I feel just as strongly about Hayes as I would have been about like Whit Merrifield figuring it out as an everyday guy. I feel maybe Soto and Sir Anthony could have figured something. Now, I really do like the Estevez move. And again, long term, this could be an A+. I hope this clip comes back to haunt me. I really do. And like, that would be the greatest thing in the world if this comes back to haunt me. And it was like, look at Foley wanted to make these big moves, but they won the World Series anyway.
So when the Orioles win Game 7 and they go Zach Eflin to Sir Anthony Dominguez to Gregory Soto to Craig Gribble to kill it out, we'll all be in pain.
No,
Tyler, what's your grade? What do you give it? Dave Dombrowski, Sam Fold, and staff.
I think that this gets I'm going to go with a C+. I think that they marginally got better. And I will say this. I think Estevez
you guys are talking me into a B+, by the way.
A- is pretty high.
Estevez is the acquisition that I'm the highest on. And I know that there are people that are saying, he's had 4 good months or a year and 4 good months or whatever the case may be, because the Rockies numbers are telling that he's a different pitcher now than he was in Colorado. Especially looking now to see what other relievers went for, to give up Aldigari and to give up Clausen, I think that it's a decent a return. It becomes a much more palatable return as as they go along. Estevez gives them a clear-cut, another high-leverage guy in the back end of the bullpen that I feel right now that you can trust. Obviously, time will tell, but I think that the last year plus for him has been much, kind of. A little bit of a shift in his mental makeup, especially with the fact that he's throwing more strikes. He's not walking guys. So he's the headliner, of course.
Sure.
Austin Hayes would get a better grade for me.
It's gonna hinge on him. I'm telling you.
It's a lot of if.
This is where it was supposed to be of him playing against lefties and Marsh playing against righties in left field and figuring out the center field position. I feel a little more comfortable than I did with like Weston Wilson, David Dahl, and the rotating panel, but not that much. I genuinely don't think. I do not believe Austin Hayes is an everyday player.
I feel much better about Austin Hayes than Weston Wilson.
Yeah, I will definitely take him. Well, the other thing is you have 2 guys in different spots in their careers. So I think that Austin Hayes just has a bigger sample size.
You're basically paying for the experience.
I don't
he
think
has a bigger sample size. He's been an everyday left fielder, and he's been an all-star.
He's got to turn it on, though.
Right this moment, I do not believe they have an everyday left fielder on the roster.
I don't think he's as far.
If that's true, then this trade deadline's an F.
And that's why, to me, like Estevez, brings this deadline up, because to me, Banks is a marginal move that I think you could see returns against lefties. I'm okay with it. Bergoya is a high price to pay, but
that is high.
I know that they have a ton of middle infielders that they really like. They kept Caba, so I'm not going to sit here and be like devastated over moving a single A player. The move to move Soto, it's
so we're going to get into that more in a second. That's a long-term move. I think that's all that is. Let's just talk about it. He was a top 10 Orioles prospect.
Correct.
So you had the chance to go into a rich farm system, grab a kid you probably like, and give up Gregory Soto for him.
And the Orioles, both teams got to fill a need, because obviously we know the Orioles are looking for relievers now, and the Phillies are looking to help build their farm system for the future. So you're bringing, I think what everybody's saying is ultimately, we don't know. Estevez is the highest, most exciting acquisition for the Phillies. The rest are still wait and see moves. And in the chat, I want to just give some love as well, because everybody's sharing their grades, and they are all over the place, by no surprise. So
I guess
starting,
by the way, there is a chance that Seth Johnson may see some major league innings this year.
Yeah.
And I know it's a big jump from AA to the major leagues.
His hands on him
and I'm not talking high leverage. I'm talking about a necessity thing. Like if they really genuinely feel like, my assumption is he goes on the 40. If you're making a move for Gregory Soto off the 40, my guess is he goes on the 40. There's a chance come September call-ups or out of necessity, he may see a handful of major league innings, but the likelihood is he's probably going to inch closer as 2025 progresses. So to me, they made 2 moves of merit. One was very good. One was fine. And so if you get an A or an A- for Estevez, and you get a C, I guess, for Hayes,
well, Hayes,
it's a C+ grade for me.
Hayes is a tough one, because if he finds his splits from last year, and I'm not saying becomes an all-star caliber player again, but there is upside there with him. You've seen it before on the back of his baseball.
That's why I think it's a bigger sample size for Hayes, because you've seen him do it last year. You've seen him in the past. Guys like Weston Wilson, you're hoping.
He has to do it.
But again, for both of them,
which is hard,
like you were saying,
harder than it sounds.
They're both unsure. You have to hope Weston Wilson has that every day or more consistently even, and you have to hope that Austin Hayes can bring that out. Otherwise, you're back to a platoon situation.
But we have evidence to look at that indicates that Hayes probably isn't going to be an everyday player, even in his All-Star season. If you look at his career splits, he's also like
good.
a 720 OPS against right-handed hitting. So it's not just a one-year kind of thing, and maybe he'll.
But it's better than Marsh, so I guess I guess you're being the pessimist, I'm being the optimist. Angel and Devil on the shoulder. You're kind of.
I'm in the middle as always.
Renee's the conscious.
Well, it's good to get all angles on this, but I just think on paper, what makes
it's a fringe move.
The only difference that we have to keep in mind, because I know people are already comparing Austin Hayes to someone like Whit Merrifield. You're talking about a 35-year-old Whit Merrifield versus a 29-year-old Austin Hayes that's been dealing with injury. His reasoning for having a struggling 2024 season is injury. And so it's not a situation of him, yes, he's aging, we all are, but it's not that big of a drop off just because. So I think for him, if you're able to, if you can go that way. Yeah, you can go that way. We're live right now. You can go that way.
There's too many wires right there. She'll show you around the other way.
Yeah, if you can go around. Go back the other side of the bar. I know, sorry.
Sorry, we're
blocking
right
the
in front of
ATM
the
and everybody
ATM
wants to get cash. I know so many people
Billy
use
Murphy's,
cash.
yeah.
But I will say, this is not Whit Merrifield in the sense of where Austin Hayes is in his career is not the same as where Whit Merrifield was when he came into the Phillies. Whit Merrifield came in as that utility piece as a veteran. Austin Hayes is being brought in to be an everyday player. Totally different roles they're expected to fill. And in the chat, I do want to give some quick love because we're getting a lot of different grades. And I want to shout out some people.
Me crazy for my A-.
Yes.
So we've got.
Thank you, Matt Decker.
I think you are.
So Seth F is saying.
When Austin Hayes comes out and lights the world on fire. No,
Let me say what the chat's got.
All right,
so
Frank
Barber
2 waters,
saying,
please. No, water.
Frank Barber is saying a C. We've got Seth F, Matt Decker, Spiral Out are all in the B minus range, as well as Jonathan Mike, Greg MC's a B plus. A lot of around the B minus, B plus area.
I can be talking to a B plus
our
easily.
Own Vince, as well as Ray Schumacher around like a C plus.
Okay.
JT's like C at best. There are some low grades.
All right, so
Crazy is saying an F.
Here's the thing that's affecting part of my grades, because obviously a right-handed bat was probably the most important, and the Phillies viewed it as the bullpen being the more important piece. What outfielder that got traded outside of Randy Arozarena, who, believe me, I wanted him and Luis number one.
Of course.
What other outfielders moved there where you went, damn, they should have been in on that?
A lot of
I didn't
small
really
names.
see a lot of outfielder movement across baseball where I went, damn, that was the one they should have gotten in on. Randy was kind of the only one. So I think I am grading it through that prism.
I think that's the strongest argument.
And here's the reason why I also give it a B or a B plus. On the reverse side of it, you actually got sometimes the best way to. I'm going to be like super witty here. Guys, bear with me. Sometimes the best way to move forward is to lessen the load and the burden. And I think, unfortunately, guys like Gregory Soto, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Christian Pache, were becoming more weight and of a burden that couldn't help you.
Just addition by subtraction.
I think there's addition by subtraction. Totally.
So as much as we'd love to be able to add flashy names, you also got rid of some guys that are headaches, that are letting the team down. How many games have we seen Sir Anthony Dominguez or Gregory Soto
we were all on edge with every appearance.
Cost you games.
And if you're
absolutely.
If you don't admit that, you're lying to yourselves.
Not to mention, you did not lose any major prospects. George Clausen and Sam Alzgari have been pitching very well in the minor league system. You didn't have to lose any of your top prospects. We were talking about Justin Crawford. We were talking about, who are they going to have to give up? They didn't give up any prospects. They were all cheap deals that you were able to add more strategic pieces to add in the areas that are needed versus just adding the flashy names. And then ultimately, you have guys like an Austin Hayes. As much as you guys want to still think of him as a Whit Merrifield, he does have an upside. As you mentioned, John, the career numbers are there. And I think the Phillies are just hoping that they're going to get healthy. I know in the chat, John, before you go really quickly.
Stop being reasonable. He wants to bitch and complain.
Sorry. People are asking about the timeline for Taijuan Walker and Spencer Turnbull. Taijuan is expected mid-August. He did begin
his rehab start tomorrow.
He's got a rehab assignment tomorrow with AA Reading. And then Rob Thompson said that Walker's going to pitch 3 or 4 innings. He'll continue that rehab assignment on August 6th with AAA Lehigh, where he'll have 4 or 5 more innings. So he is expected mid-August, but they're figuring it out, and they said they're not rushing him. Same goes for Spencer Turnbull. They're taking their time with him on that right lat strain for late August, early September. He did throw approximately 10 pitches in a bullpen session July 29th at Citizens Bank Park. And so right now they're just monitoring it because it is taking him a little bit longer. So it does feel like the plan is get Ranger healthy, get Taiwan and Spencer healthy, get the bats back going, the offense clicking again. Hope you can get something out of Austin Hayes. You know what you should get good production out of Carlos Estevez in high leverage situations. And then from there, at least you were able to protect your young pieces and actually add a prospect in that trade.
John, before
Makes
you chime in
complete
here,
sense.
let me just remind people that this is the MLB Trade Deadline Show brought to you by Indeed. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. That's Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And, of course, our wonderful friends over at Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why. It's never ordinary at Bet365. John, take it away.
365, bet your lines. I bet you're going to win one more time. Go bet. Go bet, go bet, go bet.
You got any winners for us? John, go ahead.
I mean, I'm trying to. Comes
It's
across
fine.
very pessimistic. I try to be
pessimistic.
optimistic, but
Nah, it's,
I mean, this
tell
is
us, you know,
this
how it
doesn't
is.
feel. This is a team, and I hope I'm not just being captive in the moment right here. But this is a team. They just lost.
Most
they've
people
lost,
are with you. From
How
the
many
chat.
consecutive
Correct.
series? You lost the A series, stumbling in the All-Star break. Well, they were just tired. They needed to rest up. Okay, then you come out of the All-Star break and you lose series to the Twins, the Guardians. You just got wrecked by the Yankees. You know, you sort of feel, and you know, this
Yeah.
isn't just a short-term thing. This isn't just a couple series. Over their past 40-ish games, they're playing 500 ball, maybe a little bit underneath. I think 20 and 21. So the idea that, you know, this is either going to turn out looking really, really smart or really, really dumb on the
Yeah.
Phillies' part.
Yeah, so
And we're not going to know for a long time.
No, we won't,
I agree.
unfortunately.
I agree.
So part of that trade that did just happen for the Phillies was they acquired Seth Johnson, who is a top 10 prospect within the Orioles system. He was 8th, and the Orioles are a very rich prospect farm system. And Todd Zulli is hearing that Class A righty Moises Chase is also headed to the Phillies in the Gregory Soto deal, along with Seth Johnson. So that was just a late addition to the original trade reported by Keely McDaniel.
Yeah, you have Johnson, who's 25 with a 2.63 ERA across 18 starts for AA Bowie this season. And as we talk about, when you bring in Seth Johnson as well as Moises Chase, you do get guys that are going to be for the future. So you have some moves for all of these moves. Honestly, aren't really for the now, except
Right.
for Carlos Estevez.
I think the future looks really bright. I
the
love.
other
I've
moves
given.
are like wait and see moves, and Seth Johnson is one of those guys. But at 25 years old, and with the numbers he's been showing so far at AA, as Tyler alluded to, there does seem like the potential for the Phillies to try to work him in this season.
Yeah, and it's also a long look. Clearly, they didn't believe in Gregory Soto internally. Rob Thompson, we talked about having that division lead. You were able to tinker with him, give her some high leverage chances
That's
lately.
crazy when you think
Maybe
about that.
considering the fact that, all right, if we don't like what we see or how he handles this, he's a guy we can move.
Yeah.
So they did that. They must have felt internally that they weren't going to miss Gregory Soto anymore. So they take a chance on a kid that's a top 10 prospect in a great farm system, and they get somebody else at the high A level on top of it. So that's the long-term move. Obviously, you know.
I mean, one thing I'm not worried about
Short term, we'll
is
see what Seth
losing
Johnson
Soto or Sir Anthony. You know, they've both at times shown some really great flashes with the Phillies.
Sure.
They're not guys you feel like you can trust in high leverage situations in the postseason. And for the Phillies
No.
right now, that's what it's
That's
all
all that
about.
matters,
Is the
yeah.
postseason. That's
And-
all that matters. But it seems like, and again, for better or worse, this could be a great thing that smart organizations do. Planning, they're setting up really nicely for 2026, 2027-ish.
Yeah.
You know, as sort of these current superstars start to, you know, reach the end of their peak, and you'll have an influx of new talent by holding on to these guys in the minors. It all really sets up nice for the future, and it might be great. But for fans who have been waiting forever now for a championship, and you watch these other contenders making bigger moves,
Yeah.
It's hard to swallow, and especially the way the team's been playing lately.
That's what makes it worse. The recent losses absolutely make it worse because you want some moves that can help them get out of this rut and to bring in some prospects. I know you guys are saying in the chat, like, why are they loading up on prospects and bringing in 2 prospects? But we did see this is how fast it happens. Gregory Soto, Rob Thompson was just talking about last week, was it? How he was giving Gregory Soto some opportunities in high leverage situations to see if he can help with that committee, that closer committee. See if he can handle it. He did not do well. And so now Gregory Soto is out the door. That's how fast it switches. The Phillies had been, we talked about this, with the trade deadline upcoming and now that it's passed, we could see where the Phillies were tinkering to see who can help or who needs to be moved. And Gregory Soto is one of those guys. Prior to the trade deadline, they were putting him in some different roles in high leverage situations that you normally wouldn't see Gregory Soto coming out of the bullpen. And that was them trying him out. He did not pass the test, and now he's gone and out the door. I do want to give a shout out, though. We've got a super chat. Oh. What's up? Real time with Prince Blue.
What up, Prince Blue?
Appreciate you, Prince Blue. You said death, taxes, Jamie's nipples, and DB makes a move with a shrug.
These are
appreciate you. That's all we can.
Day.
Those are the only things that we can count on these days is death,
Prince.
Taxes, and apparently
on my
Jamie's
OnlyFans
nipples.
page, I charge. These are free for you today.
Oh, brother. But this is, when we look at the recent play by the Phillies, a big part of it is they have been tinkering. And that's the reality of it. With the trade deadline approaching, they were trying some different things to see where they can get something out of guys. Now, I hope, much like we said with the All-Star break, now that the trade deadline is over, stop tinkering as much. Get back to winning games.
Hey,
you made the moves. Now let's build this team. Get Austin Hayes gelling in the outfield. Get him his at-bats going. Get the rest of the offensive production back to what it was, or at least close to what it was. And let's move forward because we've got more games, including shortly, as we saw Kevin Sullivan, the Philadelphia Union, 14-year-old recent addition
He's
and
at the
superstar,
game tonight.
threw the first pitch for the Phillies. Him and Bryce, as well as his big brother Quinn Sullivan, had a great moment. So that's always fun to see. But what's more fun to see is winning some games, Phillies, and not losing 14-4 with Garrett Stubbs coming out to pitch the close.
How about we just win tonight and we'll all feel a lot better about everything?
That's
Cole
what we
gets
all
scratched.
need.
The kid gets called up on like 2 hours notice, like, or a bullpen arm moving up to the starting, like on 2 hours notice. Like, go get to this kid. Like, hopefully the Marlins and what?
I have some sad news. I'll let you finish first.
Hopefully the Marlins or the Nationals or one of these teams that just blew their roster to smithereens today is on the schedule relatively soon after this tough stretch. It's a nice little slump buster. All right, what do you got, Renee?
Sad news for everybody, as Frank Barber reminds us that we need the PHLY Phillies t-shirt with Jamie's two-chin picture. With the end of the trade deadline means we're no longer promoting the trade deadline show that we're on currently. So your picture is done for now.
Hopefully it never sees
Hopefully there's another picture that comes.
Something.
Yeah, let's repurpose it. But it is wild because we've been looking forward to this day to see what would be done. And unfortunately, it's not the Phillies that made the biggest moves. It's the Padres. It's other teams. It is also very gross outside. It's actually supposed to rain.
Is it?
So just something to keep an eye on is the weather forecast because it does have some rain later tonight. But if you look out the windows, it's looking like something's trying to roll through a little bit sooner. It doesn't look great out at all.
I should probably go down to the game, too, also.
John's supposed to be at the game.
Yeah, feel free to leave out, John, whenever
With
you
the
gotta
team
go.
not winning games lately, it's not as fun being down covering the games at the ballpark, but
I might just
you've
stay
got a
here
job to
with
do.
the Miller Lights.
Yeah. In other news, non-trade deadline, but a name I'm sure every Phillies fan would have loved to have seen in a Phillies uniform. Mike Trout has suffered a setback in his recovery, and they're shutting down his rehab right now. If asked if Trout will return this season, they got a we'll see. So
John's
Mike,
Irish exiting us right now.
Yeah. See you, John.
Bye, John. Do you want your Miller Light to go?
I'll
Don't drink and drive.
Yeah. John's heading down to the game, obviously, to cover it as we're approaching first pitch here. But Mike Trout getting shut down for the time being. Looks like his season will probably be done here.
That's so hard.
Just sad to see, one of the game's great talents just kind of decimated by injuries. It sucks.
And you know what? First things first, I know people were still hoping that there was a chance the Phillies would get Mike Trout.
Real quick, Do you think you can filibuster with Tyler for?
You to go to the bathroom.
I don't think I can make it 18 more minutes.
I told Jamie to go to the
Tyler,
bathroom before the show started.
I got to call on the lefty.
We gave you.
I had a 90-second window.
We gave you ample
For everybody
time.
that's tuning in, this is what we have to deal with, or I have to deal with on a daily basis.
Like
I literally said, go to the bathroom. It's
ample
right
time.
there, and now you're going to pee your pants. I should make you hold it. I should make you
I think
have
it's
to hold
actually
it.
at the point where it's dangerous to my health if I hold it. This is why Scott Hansen is a legend.
Oh, my.
I have to go. You and Tyler are going to have to take over.
No.
I have
Don't
to pee.
Can you
that
squeeze
bad.
back there?
Yeah, I'll figure it
Okay,
out.
Just
so-
go.
It's that or I
go
pee my
this
pants
way.
on the internet.
There's a whole opening this way.
I don't know. He's going he's making things more complicated as per usual. Well, we went from 4 to 2. It's just Tyler and I. Chris, Julia, you want to sit in? I will say though, I don't even know. Oh, for Mike Trout, the injury, terrible to hear. Terrible to hear that Mike Trout has another setback. And this is the reality of sports. You have a guy like Mike Trout, a generational talent. Everybody wanted him in Philly. Millville product, fantastic, smashing balls out of ballparks, top across baseball, and he hasn't been able to play a complete season.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
In the last few years, and you look at how many injuries he's had, and it's always little things here and there, a bad step, an awkward play, and so to play, not only am I sorry for him, but looking bigger picture for a team like the Phillies. As we're looking at the trade deadline, as we're looking at, what they've been able to do in terms of offseason moves and now trade deadline moves, the Phillies do add depth pieces. And I think this is a big reason why I'm always for add the pieces that make sense for your team. It doesn't always have to be the flashiest moves, the biggest names, because injuries happen. Chemistry doesn't. Wow, Jamie's back that fast. I told you to go earlier. Chemistry happens.
Did you wash your hands?
Yeah.
Let me smell them.
Gross.
No, I'm just kidding. Injuries happen. Chemistry's not always guaranteed. You can't just bring in the biggest name players and expect to win. And this, unfortunately, as you see these big injuries, it just kind of reminds me, this is why super teams, you look at the Dodgers, you look at Mike Trout's injury with the Angels, it doesn't always work out how you predict. So I'm glad the Phillies, even though it's not always exciting, are a team that will just add those marginal depth pieces.
I think there's value to adding depth pieces and marginal pieces, but I think at the same time you had to understand the complexity of the situation. And maybe it wasn't complex. Maybe it was uber simple.
Yeah.
You have an opportunity in front of you, like you have over the last 3 years, to get to and win a World Series. And to me, you got better because you added Carlos Estevez, and so you did get better. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you didn't, because you did. But I think other than that, you added a guy who is a potential everyday left fielder, but like potential is a dangerous word when it comes to these type of teams.
Oh, isn't that in Moneyball? What's the scariest word in sports?
Yeah, it's a slippery. It's a slippery slope,
Sure.
right? So to me, that's why I think a C+ is fair, because you did get better with Estevez, and I guess you did get better with Hayes in the fold compared to not having him and platooning.
Yeah.
Or running out every day, Brandon Marsh against lefties.
The other thing is, outside of Brandon Marsh, Johan Rojas, Weston Wilson, maybe trying to get Cody Clemens outfield experience, you had way more unknowns. We were hoping that we can get a Weston Wilson to be able to play there regularly. There's no guarantee he can continue that. And now, especially, you're looking at playoffs, winning a World Series. Who do you trust more? Austin Hayes? Or a Weston Wilson, or Johan Rojas.
I can't tell you I trust Austin Hayes.
I can't tell you I trust either of them, but I think that I trust
Carlos
a little
Estevez,
bit more.
I know that.
Definitely trust Carlos Estevez. I think I trust Austin Hayes a little bit more, just because he's been in the experience. I hate to say it, the experience, and him being 29, 30 years old, and has had as an all-star in the past, has had success in the majors, knows how to maintain that success in the majors, versus guys coming in trying to learn how to be an everyday player.
I think there's certainly merit to it, and if you're going to do it from like a mentality standpoint, that's certainly fair. From a on-the-field tangible standpoint, I'm not so sure that they have solidified themselves much further than they needed to, or that they were prior to the trade deadline. Like, I think that to say they got better is an objectively true statement, but to say how much they got better, I genuinely don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, and it's going to play itself out over the next. I think in a month we'll have a relative idea.
Sure.
You want to see Hayes performing at a level when the stars and the backbone of this team are performing.
Of course, you want your trade deadline acquisition to be somebody that you can rely upon.
He is coming in at the shittiest time of the year.
I don't know how much I trust, especially considering the fact that, like, you see the numbers against righties, they're not good. The numbers against lefties are good. He was much better. He's been much better, like in June and July, than he was in April, May. Early portions of June. So he's gotten better over the course of the season.
He has progressed.
But are they? How much closer to a World Series title do they feel now as opposed to
here's the thing
2 weeks ago?
Here's the thing I go back to offensively. Like, if it's Jazz Chisholm and not Austin Hayes, are you kind of thumping your chest and feeling like they really improved their World Series chances?
So I think Jazz Chisholm
That's a good
makes you
question.
slightly better than what Austin Hayes does, but he
I don't
wasn't.
disagree.
He wasn't a slam dunk type of piece either, and so I'm not.
But that's like kind of the best
That's the thing.
offensive.
There weren't that many
it was all
outside
pitching
of Randy
market.
Rosarena and
It was a heavy
Luis
pitcher's
Robert.
market.
It was, and I will say, when you look at the trajectory of guys like Austin Hayes, Tanner Banks, they have actually,
Jorge
as you mentioned,
Soler,
they've been playing better as the season has gone on. And so, I know for Austin Hayes, his June numbers compared to the start of the season are much, much improved. So if you also can get guys that are moving in the right direction at this point in the season when the Phillies are not, and I know Aaron Nola's on the mound giving people
bases loaded in the
gray
first
hairs
inning.
because we got bases loaded with
Buckle
Aaron Nola
up.
on.
A
Here we
no-name
go.
minor league kid coming up and pitching
Correct.
or
I
whatever.
think the Phillies right
whoever the hell
now
this kid is.
need to get out of their own way, and that's the biggest thing. Like, regardless, none of these moves, let's be honest, Austin Hayes can come out and smash balls out the ballpark, play fantastic. Carlos Estevez can come out and get save after save. If the Phillies do not produce, if the Phillies' big names do not produce and show up, none of that matters.
You could say that about it. You could acquire reincarnate Babe
correct.
Ruth.
So, like,
Test tube
ultimately,
Babe Ruth?
none of these
like-
moves even work unless the Phillies get out of this schnod and slump that they're in. And I think that's what's going to help elevate an Austin Hayes. It'll help elevate or continue to elevate Carlos Estevez with his 20 saves on the season. If they can go on, get the offense rolling, and get better.
Let me tell you about a move that's growing on me a lot as this hour is developing. The Gregory Soto deal, I think I'm a huge fan of. Without ever really studying these kids or knowing. But Mitch Rupert, who covers the Phillies minor league system up in Lehigh Valley, says this about the kid, the righty Class A kid, Moises Chase. He says Moises Chase has 76 strikeouts in 52 innings this year for Aberdeen, but he's also walked 30. So he sounds like a guy with strikeout stuff that doesn't quite have the control yet. And to me, that screams exactly who the Phillies have been targeting to get into their system and try to fix it with Caleb Cotham. And then you throw a Chase Anderson, or Chase, what the hell is his name again? Chase Anderson, right?
Moises?
No,
Seth Johnson?
Chase Anderson,
Chase
entire
Anderson.
different player.
Who did they get? Chase what?
Wait, it was Seth Johnson and Joyce
The two
and
players,
Moises.
Moises Chase and Chase. I'm sorry, I'm blank.
Seth Johnson.
Seth Johnson.
Seth Johnson. I don't know why I chase on them.
Went to the
and
bathroom and lost, forgot to bring
Chase Anderson pitched for a long time in the league, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
I'm like,
But I like that deal because I didn't want to see Gregory Soto pitch in the playoffs.
No.
And, not everything is short term, and this was a long term 30,000
Why
foot
not?
view.
He did
Try.
just get DFA'd, so maybe they could have picked him up. I don't know.
Yeah. Did he really?
Yeah.
That's actually wild.
So his career started in 14. He just got DFA'd by the Red Sox after a 4.8 ERA in 27 games.
Wow.
He's not a starter
but
anymore.
That trade has grown on me. Just getting some more talent in the system. They might view him as a replacement for an Aldegari or a Clausen, just internally. So Gregory Soto, Sir Anthony Dominguez, we talked about that. You brought it up, Renee, a little bit of addition by subtraction. I think there's truth to that. I think they got rid of two guys that they didn't trust anymore.
Yeah.
And we went through the playoffs last year. Craig Kimbrell, nobody trusted by the end of the year, and we all hated him by the end. So, they're getting rid of the guys they don't. All right, did the Phillies just go down 1-0? Yes, they did indeed.
And here we are. Now the Phillies.
But they got rid of guys they don't trust, and if you're not going to pitch Sir Anthony or Soto in a high leverage spot or a low leverage spot, well, see ya.
It's a no leverage spot.
Yeah, see ya.
Unfortunately, as we are starting off this game 2 of the series against the Yankees, we see the Yankees score first, and it does feel like deja vu from last night. The Phillies have done in the past so well of jumping out on opponents, scoring first, winning series openers. dropped their 5th straight series opener last night in an awful, abysmal game. Some saying like the worst game they've seen this season. I keep finding myself saying a Phillies loss is the worst I've seen. And then they keep seemingly finding another way to up that loss and make it even worse.
That was really bad.
That was bad.
Well, the series is starting tonight. They had an off day.
Well, this is not a great start either then. Aaron Nola does have, there are 2 outs. There are 2 outs for Aaron Nola. Guys on the corners, and it is 1-0. So we'll see if he can get out of this one because he's at an 18 pitch count.
That's a good first inning. Exactly what you want to see. No problems here. Keep moving it along. Real quick, want to give
This is fine. This is totally fine.
Want to give a shout out to our lovely friends at Miller
Definitely.
Lite, who make this all possible, and of course have us at a bar that is spectacular. The Murphys are a great LaSalle College High School family, it turns out. We know a lot of the same people. Billy Murphy's Irish Saloon here in East Falls is an institution. As you see the neighborhood kind of rolling in for dinner time here. A friend of mine, Brian Hickey, does Quizzo here on Tuesday night, so he's got Quizzo going. Here. Yeah, it's bumping in here, and I didn't hear any hooting and hollering from the Peanut Gallery. So I would tell you that nobody's really too keen on this trade deadline. It seems like overall people are just like, maybe they got better? Question mark? They did get better.
Yeah.
It's not incredibly sexy, but outside of Tanner Scott, I think Estevez is pretty much near the top of what you could have done. And then offensively, Hayes is
death.
Excuse me, as I got a scratch on my throat there. Hayes is going to determine what this was, right? When we look back in this, hopefully at the parade, Renee, in 2.5 months, we say, wow, Dave Dombrowski really nailed Austin Hayes. He stepped up. That RBI double in Game 6 was the moment I knew they were going to win. If that happens, then it's an A++ trade deadline. So it's good to get people's reactions to it, but we'll see how this actually plays out. It's going to be – the Phillies are better. I'm not trying to be Sunshine Mary here blowing rainbows up your ass. I do think the Phillies legitimately got better. It makes me feel a little bit better that there wasn't, major bats shooken up around Major League Baseball.
Yeah,
because I would have been more and more pissed at every trade.
Oh, gosh, yeah. And a couple things. One, Matt Gelb just reported that, according to sources, the Phillies had attempted to include Gregory Soto in last week's trade for Austin Hayes, but apparently
they just wanted to get rid of this guy pretty
But apparently
bad.
the Orioles wanted
Gregory
Sir Anthony Dominguez, and then ultimately, of course, they sent both. So they were trying really hard to move on from Gregory Soto, even in that Austin Hayes trade, and still managed to find a way to send him to Baltimore regardless. But to your point, Jamie, I remember as we were talking through the different targets for the Phillies coming into the trade deadline of what they would prioritize is what it came down to, because we knew they weren't going to be able to spend a lot for both. Would they rather bring in a high leverage bullpen arm or an outfielder that can give you the offensive production, especially given the struggles of the outfield currently? It's been Nick Castellanos. Other than that, you're hoping between Brandon Marsh, between Johan Rojas, at the time it was Christian Pache, you can get something from them. So to be able to add in another outfielder, it seems like though the priority was the bullpen arm, especially since last year in the NLCS, we recall, it was you didn't have options, so you had to go back-to-back to Craig Kimbrell, back-to-back to a very young, inexperienced at the time, Orion Kerkering. They didn't have bullpen arms down the stretch against the Diamondbacks, but you could also argue it was the lack of offensive production that was an issue. So I guess, to me, you can change. It was home run or bust, and it was a lack of a bullpen. You can change the offense to be able to sprinkle in small ball, bunting, whatever it takes to keep the inning alive. You can't make bullpen arms out of nothing. So I guess now that we take a step back, I am okay with, if you had to choose between the two, you go out to get more for Carlos Estevez as a high-leverage reliever that's got incredible whip, ERA, saves on the season that can help lock you in for the playoffs, and then hope you get something out of Austin Hayes, knowing if your outfield does not produce, you can still win games. If your bullpen cannot close out games, it's very difficult to win games.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I'd rather, because it basically comes down to what you're saying is, like, they could have gotten, let's say, Randy Arozarena gotten involved in that deal, and then nothing else happens. And you have Sir Anthony here, and you have Gregory Soto here, and that bullpen is your bullpen.
And would the Phillies be better because of that? Offensively, technically.
We can't answer that question with any knowledge yet, but Randy Arozarena did hit one for the Mariners last night. Or would you rather have what the Phillies did and go and strengthen your bullpen in 2 pieces and get a guy in an outfield that you believe can elevate his game here? And we'll have that answer by the end of September.
Ooh, scary.
I feel okay about it, in all honesty. This is now the Phillies' complete roster as they are gearing up for another Red October, and certainly not the sexiest trade deadline in the world, but I think a smart deadline overall where you upgraded the team, and the biggest chip you gave away was William Bergolla, who does seem like a lot to pay for our new boy from the White Sox, Tanner.
Banks.
Tanner Banks. I hope he's not a cake eater. Do you know that last name reference?
Yeah, it's an Adam Banks reference.
Oh. I just keep thinking of the Banks family and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
No,
Everything I keep going
this
to.
was Cake Eater, Adam Banks of the Mighty Ducks fame. So overall,
I forgot that was his name.
We appreciate everybody for hanging out with us tonight. We really appreciate everybody here at Billy Murphy's Saloon and Mike
Cheers
Murphy.
to that.
What a
trade deadline.
I'm gonna have to go get another beer because I got some friends over there. But what a great bar.
Cheers.
Billy Murphy's. We're gonna be giving away some Phillies tickets here to everybody in attendance after this show is over. We got some great signed memorabilia. To all of our diehards that have been checking out our emergency podcast, our trade deadline shows, we love you. We mean it. A lot of fun, and the Phillies are better, and now it's time to get the F out of this slump and start playing winning baseball again, because the reality is, Renee, nobody's really having fun these past 2 weeks of Phillies baseball. So hopefully they can get back to their ways. I do believe it's happening. I was getting tweets last night. You still at a 3.5? You still at a 3.5? All right, maybe I'm up around a 4.5. But overall,
the things people remember.
Yeah, like I'm not in panic mode yet. I understand why some people are. But the Phillies got better, and that's all you can really ask for.
Stop complaining and comparing. Stop comparing the Phillies to the Eagles' 10-1 start. Stop comparing the Phillies to every other fall that we've seen in Phillies sports history that's left us depressed. I know we all have PTSD. We are easily triggered. I get it. This is a different team, and I do feel like when you look at the errors, it's a lot of things that are fixable, and it's also things. It's injuries. It's overuse of guys having gone and pitched way too many innings compared to what they're used to at this stretch of the season. It's also the natural ebbs and flows and ups and downs of a season for any baseball team. The Phillies are not alone. I know it doesn't make it any easier to say, like, we're not the only ones struggling, but they're not. There are plenty of other teams that are going through the ups and downs, some that are trending upwards, like a team like the A's or even the Angels, and different teams have been winning more lately, whereas a team like the Phillies, the Orioles, the Braves have been struggling. So I'm hopeful, because I do feel like if you look at this team now and what they've done so far to this point, to still be the best team in baseball, they've tried a lot of different things. And you can't say that last year at this point. Not only were they just trying to catch up to the Braves at this point last year, but they also still had a lot of the same errors and mistakes. We're seeing them tinkering. That tinkering has led to some losses and partly the slump. But I think bigger picture, they added at the trade deadline. This is a more locked-in group, and they're going to figure their way out of this. I think August is going to be a big month for the Phillies to really take over and get back to being showing that the top team in baseball.
Yeah, let me just share this with you as Alex Carr, a guy that covers Major League Baseball and the Phillies minor league system a little bit here locally. Maybe this will have you feel put a smile on your face on the way out the door. I love William Bergolla as a prospect, and I'm probably the high man on him. But I would 1-for-1 trade Bergolla for Seth Johnson in a heartbeat, let alone upgrading from Gregory Soto and getting another prospect in the process.
Okay.
So that was the long-term move that they made. The short-term moves, obviously, Hayes and Estevez. Dissect it how you will. The Phillies got better. We'll see how much Austin Hayes can really make this trade deadline shine a little bit.
I want to clarify, I have seen the Mighty Ducks. I just did not remember the reference because I saw the Mighty Ducks very, very long when I was very, very young, I should say.
I saw Mighty Ducks
It's been a while. It's been a very long time.
A double feature with my dad and sister. The other movie, Captain Ron.
Oh, wow.
Great flick. Great flick.
But it has been a good trade deadline.
Yes.
And as Seth F is saying in the chat, the rest of the season does start now.
Yeah.
Let's effing go.
And this trade deadline show was brought to you by our friends at Indeed. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. That's Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire. You need Indeed. And also our friends over at Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why. It's never ordinary at Bet365. All right, let's go, Phils.
1-1, all tied up, baby. Just like that. The rest of the season is changing. Alec Boehm.
There you go, Boehmer.
Alec Boehm gets a double. Gets the RBI, and Kyle Schwarber, it looked like, was one that scored.
All right, we will be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Thank you to Indeed. Thank you to Bet365. Thank you to Miller Lite and Billy Murphy Saloon.
Yes.
A great time for our first ever trade deadline show. We'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m., Phillies Nation. We love you. Thanks for hanging with us. See you soon.
We all silly like the mayor.